it being that I grew up in South Central, like at that point you had to choose. Like either you chose or the block around you chose for you. I fully embraced the lifestyle. I fully embraced that. I made sure that it was exposed. I made sure that individuals only had two options when they approached me, which it was, you know what, he's a gang member, I gotta kill him, or hey, he's my friend and I have to shake his hand. I told my crime partner, you know what, man, like, don't stop. At that moment, I came out the window and I discharged my firearm, you know. And
At the cops.
You hear my mom, my sister on the side of the phone, and they're crying. They're like, why did they send you to Pelican Bay?
Far as
like
fuck.
that is a prison that's designed for gang members. Like, Mom, I'm a gang member. I don't want to be looked at as just like, oh, this dude was a gang member and he did time in prison and he's from that lifestyle. Like, nah, man, like I have more of, I know I mentioned it to you guys when we spoke last time, like I have a whole lot more to offer than just to be my past.
Yo, welcome back to Reentry Network Podcast. It's your boy Yaquian.
It's your boy T.
We got another one for you guys, man. Thank you guys so much for the support, man. Play May stuff was booming. Check out Barbie Amort's podcast, man. That one's tight as hell. She has a crazy, wild story. But we got another special one for you guys today. It's going to be wild and it's going to be intense, man. This is an individual that served 15 years but was actually sentenced or expected to do 36, right? So I want to give our boy a really round of applause because on top of that, my boy's doing the work now and helping out the reentry folks even now. And he's only been out about 6 months, yo. So he's doing a lot right off the bat. So let's give a warm welcome to our boy Ernesto Sanchez, man. Thank you so much for being here, bro. How you feeling?
I'm excited, man. I'm excited. I'm thankful, you know, that you guys allowed this opportunity. So, you know, I mean, it's been a kind of like an emotional roller coaster since I came home on October 26th of last year. I couldn't be more blessed and excited about what I'm doing and how much I've accomplished as I've been out, and then also what's to come.
Right, because I think that's one thing that really captured our attention is what you're doing now, right? Yeah. You're a reentry case manager at the moment, right?
Yeah, at the moment I work at the Work Source, which is in West LA, and I was in the beginning. I started as a paid work experience, just kind of like an intern and getting that, you know, the things down of what is it to be a case manager, and at the moment they're actually negotiating if they want to hire me full time or whatnot, and if I want to take the offer, of course. But I help our men and women coming home with jobs. I make those connections with businesses like Amazon, Starbucks, whatever it may be, and we try to specifically like focus, at least in my position, is just on men and women that are looking for jobs that have been impacted by the prison system.
Which is something that I feel like a lot of individuals coming out, they expect that I can't do it. There's nothing I could do. I have a background, this and that. But there's so much to it.
Or the other part that you mentioned that I love is that a lot of the times I feel like we're relegated to warehouse work, construction work. But it doesn't have to be that case. You mentioned they have programs out there, and we've dealt with those programs where they start off even here as internships, and then if they like you, they're like, come on, full-blown employee. Why not? You know what I mean? And it's a good starting point for somebody that's, you know, that did some time, wants to give back, doesn't necessarily. Because, again, I feel like the common thing is you're going to hit one of these spots and they're going to tell you, these are the felon-friendly companies. You know,
and that's the thing, like, you get that from somebody that hasn't been impacted.
That's the issue.
So you get somebody that has been working in the work source probably 2 to 10 to 15 years, 20 years, and this is what we have, and this is what you're taking. We'll get you in there. Don't worry about it. Now, the process is easy, of course, but to actually have someone that's actually been in the lifestyle and say, you know what, bro, like, you don't really have to be like someone else's narrative. Like, you can write your own narrative, and you can be sitting behind a desk like me and doing the same work. Because most people don't think like, oh, well, it's not possible because I have facial tattoos or I have a background.
Good point.
Like, for me, like, it didn't stop me when I was in my past lifestyle, stop doing crime. So why is it going to stop me now, right? Specifically when I'm trying to be successful. So I go to work and, you know, I got to get all dappered up and I got to put on my makeup and hey,
You guys got to do slacks in the whole.
We do the whole thing.
Shiny shoes.
But I just outdo all my all my coworkers. It's just I go because, and I feel, and it's something people say. Well, you shouldn't feel that way. I have to try 10 times harder, right? I show up an hour before work even opens. I just think it's something that shows value. It shows characters. It shows what I'm willing to do as an individual that has served time, and that my time and my crime doesn't define me.
Yeah.
I love that, man. That serves as an example of, is it possible? Yeah. Do you have to put in a little extra work? Absolutely. But why wouldn't you want to do that when you're trying to, gain success in life? It's going to take that. It's going to take that extra push, that extra effort. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it, man. Shit. So you did 15 years. We kind of want to jump in to kind of, a little bit about your upbringing, kind of your journey. And then definitely touch on I know a lot of the times you don't go into prison already kind of with your mind made up of, I'm going to turn away from this stuff or living that type of lifestyle. And again, that lifestyle encompasses a lot of things. It could be anything. And then use that. And then you can maybe highlight also, at what point did you say, like I tell people, after 2, 3, 4, 5 years, you're like, cool, I'm done playing pinochle. I'm cool. I don't want to be here no more. You kind of decide that at a certain part of your journey. So we definitely want to touch on that. But where do you want to start? So yeah, where you want to start from the sandbox? We could.
I mean, we could start there. We could start where pretty much grew up. I grew up in South Central Los Angeles, so I'm very familiar with the area.
Okay, so local.
Yeah, I'm very local. I actually grew up between Normandy and Western, so it was always a thing watching Friday. It was like, well, I grew up here,
Right.
The environment, how can I say, it was a lot different. I actually, not so long ago, like a few days ago, I got to revisit where I grew up. And, it's kind of sad to see how much has really changed, right? Where you grew up, where you were raised, say like the sandbox, right? But for myself, I grew up with just my mother. My father left when I was 3 years old. I just think he wasn't ready to accept those responsibilities as a father. He left me, my mother, and my sister. My sister's about 4 or 5 years older than me. So she's always kind of been like my mother also as well, watching me, over me. My father left my mother to really just do her, right? He didn't really supply anything, whether you want to do the financial thing, the physical support, mental support. So I didn't have a father from like 3 years old and on, right? It was difficult because I believe my mother was trying to adjust to this whole new life of taking care of a young man or a young child and also a girl, which is my sister. When you grow up in an environment like ours and there's this trauma and there's like a generational trauma, right? You tend to just discipline your kids one way. So for me and my sister, discipline was basically physical. I'm not going to take away from it being that my father left and it made me a certain way, right? It made me feel a certain way. So I guess I lashed out a lot more. And I made it difficult for my mom. I made it difficult where she was very abusive physically, mentally, and emotionally, right?
Do you think that was because that's pretty much, she didn't really have anything written out of how it's supposed to be done? She just...
Yeah, I don't think she did, and I think no one does.
Right.
But I think that hurt people, right? So she was hurt, and she didn't know how to deal with her trauma, and she didn't know how to deal with her upbringings, that it just kind of like, it just became a system thing. Like, you know what? This is the way that I have to treat you because you're behaving wrong and you're not listening. Not alone, I have the financial burdens, I have the emotional burdens, I have this, and that. And trying to take care, like my mom says, like, you were bad. Like, you were one of them bad little kids. Like, you were, like, at least every grade I was sent home or they were calling my house, like, Ernesto did this, Ernesto did that. So I can see how she probably was lost and confused of what exactly do I have to do with this individual. And it's like, not to really jump ahead, but every teacher always told her, man, this kid needs a mentor. He needs a father. He needs this. He needs that. And I mean, how can she give that?
Yeah, that's kind of cold, huh? That realization that, like, not knowing they're gonna pitch these things because ideally that's the way it should be. Get them some support. Get a Theo involved. But what if you don't have anybody, right?
Yeah, and we did, like, not to say that we didn't have that support also with extended family or immediate family. We did. We come from a very big family.
Oh, okay.
My grandmother, my grandfather, rest in peace. There was about 10 kids. You know, my mom was the only girl. 9 boys, 1 girl. So you imagine, it was rough. It was rough, and the example was within my family. You know, not to touch too much on it into the topic, but they were my influences, bad and good. And you tend to gravitate towards that. And then their friends become your influence, right? So you would have people come to the house, because they were also involved in the lifestyle also as well to a certain extent. So their friends become your role models.
So your family was it one of those families like everybody's from the neighborhood type of deal? You know what I'm talking about?
It was in a way it wasn't, and it wasn't. Like, it was, there was people that were connected. There was people that had they did their things. So it was there. It was at my doorstep.
It was there.
It was at my doorstep. Like, there was no lie about it that there was something going on there. And whether people wanted to be blind to it or not, at the end of the day, like, something was going on. And only a few were able to see it, and only a few it affected them. Luckily, in my situation, I kind of look at it as, you know what, I'd rather be me that went through the experience rather than my cousins. Because to me, I was like, one day, it stuck to something that my stepfather had told me. You were just weak when many were strong. So being a young, gullible kid, and you're seeing all this, and you're urging for a father, you're urging for that role model, you just kind of like, you know what, like, man, I like what these dudes are doing. Like, they got new whips. They got new money. They're not pulling out dollars. They're pulling out hundreds. They're smoking trees. They're talking about gang wars and connections and this, and that. So, I mean, it becomes what your community is. And not only do I see it in my household, but I see it at school. So,
at what age did you kind of like start comprehending, like, what's going on? Like, this is like,
I think probably like, being like in the 3rd or 4th grade.
That's young.
3rd and 4th grade, you start really just seeing like, you know what, like, this is what's really going on in my household. And then you just kind of like, you want to like, I think at that age, or at that time in my life, I started being more curious about things, right? So I would see people get high, and then of course, hey, I want to get high. Like, what's that weird smell that's in the air? Like, I want to do that too. And not until you eventually try it, like, and then you're like, oh shit, and now you're gonna go by, and you're doing pretty much and
falling in the same footsteps, basically, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. That's definitely and we hear that all the time. And again, a lot of people don't understand. You even if you have moms and pops, it's just everyone is impressionable, and depending on who sticks with you, that's who you want to be, and that's the path that you end up chasing, not knowing that eventually you're like, fuck, I lost all these years just to understand that I knew I shouldn't have been going down that path anyways,
And I was very gullible.
Yeah.
I was very gullible. Like, I was very gullible. I was like a sponge. I wanted to be accepted. I wanted love. I wanted care. I wanted all these things that you would think that a child gets early on in his life. So when you're seeing older men, like, give you a hug, or, hey, you know what? Like, let me take you to the barber shop and get you a haircut. Like, okay, well, let's go. And then you see he has a Camaro, IROC.
Fuck it.
You're kind of like, this dude can be my dad.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's putting out money to pay for it, and you're like, man, this is cool. So you tend to want to focus on that now. So that's kind of what happened for me at a young age. I really became intrigued, like, just really, really became by what other older men were doing in my surroundings.
This lifestyle kind of started, you obviously started adopting this lifestyle at one point, but when you started adopting it, you started seeing it affect friends, like closest friends and stuff like that. Can you tell us about the experience? Because you talked about even seeing a friend pass away in front of you, right?
Yeah. In that, I started experiencing things more like when we would go to middle school. So middle school, it kind of exposed more because at that point I felt that, some people tend to change when they're in high school, but for me, middle school was like that point, like it divided people, and it being that I grew up in South Central, like at that point you had to choose, like either you chose or the block around you chose for you.
Yeah.
So
where do you stay? What side of the street? All right, cool. You must be from over there.
Yeah, you must be from over there, right? So all this, like, you played in the playground with each other. Like, no, you became, now you're an enemy. So now you show up to functions and parties and whatnot, and you see each other at school, and hey, that's my enemy, right?
Yeah.
For me, early on, like, I had started making friends already. And it's kind of weird. Like, it's not weird, but in the beginning, it's weird when you look at it. And looking back now I know why we all got together, but because we all lack the same thing. Correct. We all lack that father, right? So you have such and such coming around, and then you have this individual coming around, and then you look at it, you're like, man, this dude don't even have a dad, and his mom just bought him a gun, like.
Yeah.
So it's all a bunch of hurt little individuals trying to make things right, and I did, in the beginning of 2000s. When you go up all the way to 2005 and 6, there was a lot of gang violence. There was a lot of gang violence. There was a lot of racial tension, right? And I got to experience that. Yeah. I got to experience that with family members being shot and killed. I got to experience that with friends of friends. I got to experience that as also my friends and my childhood friends being shot, and whether they passed on or whether they survived. I think that what affected more people, some people say, well, man, the loss of my friend affected me. But for me, it was like, I had a friend and he was shot. He was actually shot around 5 times. And in the process, when he was shot, he survived. So now that affected me a lot more because this individual that was destined to die at that moment came up now, and he has nothing but revenge and resentment. And that's my homeboy. So what goes on through his mind? Revenge, murder, right? And I'm just around for the ride. Like,
and you know what, though? That's a 50-50, right? Because some motherfuckers might be like, you know what? That was enough for me. That was an eye-opener. Yeah. So he went the other route, and then him being your homeboy, you guys kind of go full force into that.
And it fuels it. It fuels it. It fuels it because you imagine you found what you're looking for, which is acceptance, which is a brotherhood, which is recognition, which is love and care, right? I mean, it's all the wrong things through the wrong settings, but still, you come across it. So if if this individual tells you, your friend, your homeboy, whatever it may be, oh, let's go do this. Let's go, bro. I'm not tripping. So you end up doing what he's doing. And at that point, you're a follower too. But you don't care about it. And then I think those demons start building, right? You tend to be a little bit more different when you're around your family because no one's going to understand you. Mom's working hard. Grandma's taking care of what she has to. Grandpa is. And you show up home and in the back of your mind is like, fuck, I just went to go do a drive-by shooting. And my grandma's over here offering me frijoles like, yeah, grandma, I'll eat. And you go to school and like, not until you get exposed and you really put and you're hands-on into this lifestyle, then you tend to look at life different. And you tend to have certain demons. You tend to like, I can't go to that block. They just invited me here. I can't go there. Like some of my cousins, hey, we're going to go to a house party. Like, bro, can't go to that house party. What's your problem? But these things are becoming what they are. And eventually that contributes into the trauma that we have throughout the years.
At that time, was it something that you started seeing as like, I could do this for the rest of my life? Or you knew like deep down, nah, this is nothing, like I can't be doing this forever?
During the lifestyle, yes. During the lifestyle, yes. Once I fully embraced it and I committed my crime and I went off to prison, like I did. Like I had fully embraced the lifestyle. I had fully embraced at all costs that this was my brotherhood. This was the people that I loved. This were the people that I slept with. These were the people that I broke bread with. Like, I mean, when you're celled up with a dude for 2 to 3 years, like that dude becomes your brother. Yeah. You know? And you're willing to ride and do anything for that, right? So I did. I fully embraced the lifestyle. I fully embraced that. I made sure that it was exposed. I made sure that individuals only had 2 options when they approached me, which it was, you know what? He's a gang member. I got to kill him. Or, hey, he's my friend and I have to shake his hand. So I felt that I did to some extent. You know, there was things that happened in my life and like I was ready to, you know, I treated the lifestyle and I made it a primary thing in my life that everything else came secondary, which is family.
Right. A lot of people don't realize you're over there fucking around. You're in the mix at the detriment to ruining family relationships and everything being let go, or you keep distancing yourself further and further and further. And then when you get busted, you're like, I'm here now, you know, moms, I need, you know, package and tienda on Wednesday or whatever, you know, and then you're like, damn, now it's weird that the cycle, you're gravitating back to family again, you know, under fucked up circumstances when it shouldn't have been that way, you know, but that's the name of the game.
Yeah.
So it started off with like mischievous stuff in school, stuff like that. At what point did it become like a neighborhood thing? Or like gangs or whatever you want to put on it.
I think towards the end of like 8th grade.
So that's young, middle school.
Yeah, going on to like freshman year.
Yeah.
Like I knew, like I was going to a school and I knew I couldn't be there. And I wasn't even like a full-blown gang member at that time. It was just like, you know what, like I'm at a school that I can't be. But in your mind,
that in yourself.
In your mind, you're saying that. Like I'm out of bounds. Like, so now you're navigating through the school and then you start ditching, you know, and then you're just kind of doing things that you're not supposed to be doing. And then you're just like, you know what, I really can't go to that school anymore because my enemies live there or they go to school there.
Were you already participating in like all this, like were you pretty active? Would you feel like you were pretty active even going into 8th grade onto freshman year? Or you became active more so in high school?
I think more in high school because people now had cars. Right?
Right.
So crazy, like, that transition, huh?
Yeah. Because now you have, whether you're a freshman or you're a senior or whatnot, and whether you're going to school, like it's like you're already a young adult.
Yeah.
Right? So individuals come around and they got cars, and then it's, when you're in a car, like crime is a different thing. Yeah, you can be walking around and you're in a bike and your homeboy, you know, got a 12 gauge and he's in the front of the pedals and you're rolling through the hood. Like that's one aspect of it, right? But when you're in a car, like that's your getaway. You know, you don't have to run. You just get on this.
It doesn't feel as real. It feels like it's like you're in a fucking movie when you're in a car. It's just in and out. You get on, not knowing that whatever the slew of consequences that come with that, you know, but 100%.
One thing that interests me though is I don't think you caught it. Oh no, you probably weren't here. But when we were talking before, is you were doing travel ball.
Yeah,
right.
We I had got involved in a basketball team. And I also played football. You know, so I was always like, for me, I've loved football. I've loved the craft of it, and I also love basketball.
You hoop, huh?
Yeah, so I hoop. So we might, you know.
That's what I said. Y'all were gonna be best friends. But you're not. You know what I mean?
I tend to like now, as far as for basketball, like that's all I pretty much on Instagram. I'm just always following different coaches and different type of things because I love the art of it. I love, you know, Phil Jackson and what he created as far as, you know, the triangle offense and things like that. So I did. I was we spoke about it. Yeah. It was kind of like early on, like we had one of my uncles, my Uncle Charlie, and we grew up away around the corner from a park, like not even like a block away, right? So in that park, you had the exposure of softball, soccer, football, and basketball.
Different.
And for me, it was football. right? Because it was physical, you know.
Got you.
And it's just kind of like, you know what, I like this. And then, which is his wife, my aunt, she's like, you know what, I'm signing up my sons for basketball. You know, would you want to come? And that kind of became a thing. So I started playing.
My bad to cut you off real quick. If you can get close to the mic, because I want to get the story,
Yeah.
like the experience. Yeah. So now it's like you're the family, or they're telling you like, you know, come get involved and stuff like that. And so from there, you start getting involved.
Yeah, I started getting involved in it. You know, it's one thing. I still had a strong support. I felt you had people that were invested in me, right? I can honestly say that my aunt was one of them. You know, she was one of them. She was one of the individuals like, hey, you know, do you want to go play? I'm going to take your cousins. Do you want to go? And here, let's go. I'll sign you up. I'll take you.
That's deep.
And even through school, like, I went to a continuation school, and she's like, I'll take you. Like, I'll sign you up. I'll take you. I'll pick you up. Like, she was heavily invested in me. And, you know, you still tend to not, like, take those things in because you're missing something. Like, why is it my mom's not here taking me to school? Why is
That's
it
a
that my
good
mom's
point,
not
man.
taking me to a traveling team or, you know, basketball games? And, you know, that's kind of like, it was discouraging for me at a young age because I would go to these games, whether it was football or basketball, and whether I was playing Pop 1 or whether I was playing high school football or whatnot, and then you turn to the stands and you don't see no family members.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like, well, why the hell do I even come play?
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, I heard something the other day that it kind of touched me because those are the things that still get me choked up to this day. It's like, fuck, like, why was it that I wasn't getting this attention, right? But those are things that you're never really going to know because you don't know what was happening at that moment. But I heard someone quote, and they were like, you know what? It was those times when I went to go play and no one went to go watch me that kind of fired me up to just do it a whole lot more, right? And then, of course, that individual became an NFL legend, you know? But for me, it was like, okay, you don't come watch me, like, I'm going to rebel, you know, and I'm going to go do my own things.
Yeah.
You know, because apparently you ain't going to come see me either way, you know? And I just started gravitating towards the things that pretty much, you know.
Do you think those things got more attention than the positive things? That's right. That's what it seems like. Or you get more spotlight on you when you do the negative.
I felt that it did to a certain extent. You know, I felt that the things that I was doing that were positive were kind of like overlooked, and the things that were negative, of course, everybody wants to attend to those things. It's like you crying. Of course, people are gonna attend to it. Most people don't attend to a laugh. You know.
That's deep. That's real
hella
spit. Yeah.
true, yeah.
That's what it is.
And for me, that's what it was. It was, and you know, I always think as basketball, you know, and even going into prison, it was always a way for me to like find peace, find my childhood back. You know, it would, because when you think about it, like you grew up and you had an interest in this, and then there was no attention there, you had to kind of let that go, right? So then you replaced it with something else, which was negative. For me, it was drugs. You know, for me, it was drugs. For me, it was the lifestyle. For me, it was getting drunk, you know, messing around with multiple women. So you exchange this for that. And then you go into prison. I mean, some of those things still occurred and still took place, but it was like, hey, they're playing basketball. Let me go try this out.
Yeah.
You know?
That's a trippy part, right? Like, who would have known that once you get busted, all there is to do is fucking play sports like you're a teenager all day.
Yeah.
In the yard. That's all you're doing is playing sports, killing time playing sports. Anything you can play. Like, I've never played volleyball. I learned how to play volleyball in prison. You know, but I could have been doing that out here. I swear.
You play volleyball in prison?
Yeah, you play volleyball
That's
in there for
lit.
sodas competitively.
Hey, no, they have competitions. It gets real. It gets real.
I bring the best of the best from this yard and then this yard, and then you guys are playing a 4-on-4 against a team. Like,
Hey, volleyball's a legit sport
Yeah.
too, bro. Like that sport is legit. But you started doing, now this started taking place now that you're in high school. You never went through juvenile, you never got incarcerated in the juvenile halls or anything.
I had got detained as much as that, you know, because of the gang affiliation. but it was just like I had never really entered the system at a young age.
And the first time
was Crash out here like that at that era?
Crash,
what year? Like early
this
2000s?
was like early 2000s. So Crash,
They were deep.
Crash used to be, 3 times a week you were getting Crash when I was coming up. So you would get stopped, and they did know you already. And in my situation, that was the thing, we know who he is, we know who he's with, So it just became like a casual thing. At least in a month, we would get stopped about 3 to 5 times.
Crash was that gang task force.
Yeah,
they were
gang task
identifying
force.
where people were.
Yeah, basically what they did was they would arbitrarily brand you as a gang member. So they'll pull out these FI cards, FY cards, something like that. Get your name down. If your homeboy's already like validated or put on these cards and you're kicking it with them, they would automatically group you with them. And so now, for example, you commit a crime in another neighborhood, now it's for the benefit of a gang. That's when all these laws came in. I think at that time too, there was still neighborhoods that you could still hang out 10 deep on a corner. Crash stopped all that, right? Because now you're being lumped together and everyone's getting a violation or people are going to jail. I think now they stopped it because what was happening is, sure, they were getting gang members, but then they were getting dudes that were just walking to the park, that had nothing to do with it. Yeah. But it was grouping whole communities together. And, I don't know. It's a 50-50. I don't know if it worked or what were the pluses, cons, but...
Well, I think out of that came the whole, not that out of that, but out of that came, when you think about the early 2000s and everything else that happened with the gang injunctions and the gang enhancements. I mean, you were just sentencing a juvenile to life in prison just because he was a gang member.
Yeah.
Like, my crime, unfortunately for what I did to my community, like... It only had repercussion. You would think that it had more repercussion because of your initial crime, but no, it was because, you were a gang member. So being a gang member, it had a high impact in your crime because it was something that was, I guess they categorize it as, there was thought into it. There was forethought, this was something that you wanted to do, right? Rather than a simple person just kind of acts out and has this spasm.
Yeah.
So
the whole passion of crime thing, if you're a gang member, is not a thing.
Yeah.
You can't just some shit just literally happened, People were getting, 10 years just for that? And then the gun enhancements were another 10. And then,
that's wild.
Yeah, a lot of people are still there because of those. Again, I don't want to say draconian because I don't know who's to say what type of laws needed to be implemented to kind of, because it was hot in the 2000s. There was a lot of death in the 2000s, So who's to say that was a good policy or not?
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, so you didn't go through the juvenile hall, which is good, right? Did you feel like you were about to what level of high school did you make it to?
I made it up to the 10th grade.
Okay. So at that point though, there's a little light at the end of the tunnel of shit, maybe I'm gonna finish out these last high school years. Yeah. I don't know if you were probably doing sports every now and then, still fucking around or whatever. Did you feel like that was gonna happen, or did you know, know what, this is getting worse? I'm about something.
I didn't feel, honestly, I didn't even know how I got to the 10th grade. I think that's kind of really highlights our LA district.
There you go.
You get all the way to the 12th grade, you ain't even got the GPA, but you're there.
Yeah. Right. Just for showing up.
Yeah, for showing up, exactly. Yeah. And for me, that's what it pretty much was. I just showed up just to show up. I showed up because I was selling at that time. So I would be the one supplying,
and at school,
and then you have all these things, and then you're networking. You have people are doing flower parties, and they're doing this, and they're doing that, and you're the one selling.
That was the thing. I forgot about that whole flower parties, bro. I'd be coming out of middle school, and you have people outside giving me fucking flyers for an 18 over party. I'm like, yo, what the fuck is this?
Yeah. So that was kind of the thing, and even now that we network in a righteous way in the more professional setting. At that time, that's what you're doing also as well. You're networking. I'm a dope dealer. I'm selling my dope. Who's having what? Okay, you know what? This is what I'm supplying, and this is what I can do.
Right.
So as we kind of start getting close to, because I want to really start touching too on the after component of your come up now being released. Let's talk about kind of at what age were you is when you got incarcerated?
So at 18 years old, I was incarcerated.
At 18?
December 14, 2007.
What took place
almost
that
fresh
day?
18, basically?
Yes.
Damn.
So I had already like that night, like for me it was just a normal routine, right? Of like it's almost like, you know what, I kind of feel like I took care of my chores in the morning, you know, did what I had to do to help my brothers and my mom and whatnot, and I was like, I'm gone. Weekend come around, I'm gone, right? I'll strap up, get my little weed, whatever and whatnot, and just
take
I'm
off.
on the move.
Yeah.
You know, and that night, you know, it was something that it impacted my community, impacted me, impacted my whole family, it impacted our law enforcement. Just simply based on the point that I was in my life. You know, you imagine I was 18 years old. I had just ran through these 18 years of just trauma, right?
Yeah.
Whether things had happened to me emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually, right? And I had come to the point in my life where I didn't want to live anymore. I didn't care. I didn't really care, right? There was contemplation of many things, right? And I had a suicidal mentality. So if you were a law enforcement, if you were an individual, for me, it didn't really matter because I knew what I had signed up for and I knew what I wanted to do and I knew what I was destined to do, which is basically like live by the gun and die by the gun. You know,
You already had came to that
I
conclusion
had already came to
within
that
yourself.
So in that night, not to get too much details, but that night, like we were off to commit a crime. You know, I had a crime partner. At the time, he was a lot younger than me, and you know, this individual. One thing I could remember, he was like very hesitant. You know, and I myself feeling that I was like the older gang member, the older individual, I was like, you know what, I got this. Don't worry about it. You just have to drive. You know, and we had a G ride. You know, it was we stole it around from the corner. You know, the whole thing was planned and prepared.
Which is a little smarter than your average Joe, because most shit just happens and then they end up with
Yeah.
fucking triple life over something they didn't even.
One thing
Yeah.
I can say in our upbringings, and not to touch too much on that, but we were scolded, like we were taught,
Schooled.
we were
whatever, yeah.
schooled, like people took that opportunity to school us and even scold us with certain things. Hey, you can't do this, you can't do
Okay.
that. You know, you're not supposed to do this, you're supposed to do that. So we had people telling us, hey, you know what? This is how you come up and this is how you do things. You know? So when it comes to that night, yeah, things were like planned because we knew what we needed to do. We knew what the plan was.
you.
And whether you want to take it that it was, you know, his reentry into the gang or whatnot, we drove to the east side of South Central. At the time, there was racial tension, you know, and we were looking for anybody and anything that would come across our way, right? At that point, what was kind of like destined for him to commit a crime that night, it was just like, you know what? I got the gun. Don't worry about it. Like, you just drive. I got this.
You're talking about your crimey.
And I'm talking about my crime,
Okay.
you know? And that night, for whatever reason, like, I felt, you just feel different. You feel different. You know, you do feel different. You feel like, you know what, like everything else around you blacks out. And we had come to an intersection and at, you know, on the east side of South Central, and two officers passed us. You know, they put the light on us, they got behind us, and of course they did their job, you know, responding to a vehicle that had been stolen. You know,
Middle of the night or something like that?
it was at night.
So you stood out like a sore
This
thumb,
was
huh?
already like towards 11 o'clock at night, you know, and you see two bald-headed Mexicans in the car.
pullover.
You know, it's a pullover. And for me at that point, like I had my, you know, at the gun that I had at that time, I had it Glock back. And my whole philosophy was if the gun's Glock, we got to use it. We can't not let this gun. That was what we accepted.
At the time, that was the
No way.
mentality.
That was
yeah.
the mentality. So, you know, we took them on a pursuit, these officers, and we got to where I grew up, right? And I told my crime partner, you know what, man? Like, don't stop. Don't stop. At that moment, I came out the window and I discharged my firearm, you know. And
At the cops.
At the
two
cops.
What did your crimey say? Because you said he was a little more
Right.
reserved. What happened when he said don't stop? Did he like, nah, what?
He did, and I think he was also like just spooked. You know, he was also just kind of like, you know what, like
doing it.
I think at the time he was like 16. I
So
can't
both of
really
you guys were
recall.
young.
It's been years, but he was also like,
Damn.
and you know, you're listening to your older homeboy. You really
Right.
don't have a say so at this point, right? And I discharged my firearm, my gun, and you know, at that point, like, it's crazy because I was still thinking about what I was doing and what I needed to do. You know,
You're saying like right in that moment,
right at
everything was very clear.
right at
and
that
you were-
moment,
yeah.
you know. And of course, I was intoxicated. I had drugs in my system and all this. Not to say that to justify anything,
Yeah.
but that just seems to get anything out of your
edge.
system. Any type of edge you have, any type of judgment. Like, man, I don't care, bro. I'm a gangster, you know. I'm a Queen Latifah for this right now.
Yeah.
Like, and
Set it off,
and
yeah.
yeah, I'm setting it off, you know. Like, and in the event, you know, I'm thankful that the officers didn't get hurt. You know, my crime partner stopped the car. It kind of like crashed
Okay.
into the park where I grew up playing up sports.
No way.
The same
the
part
same
that
part,
you
the same
oh,
part.
man.
So that was like our destination. Like, we need to get to the park and just run. You know, at the time the park was under construction, so there was like this whole plan. I'm gonna throw the gun and we're running and we're doing our thing. And no, it didn't happen that way. He stopped the car. Instantly, I came out the car with the gun on my left hand and I was shot.
And he didn't know though.
And
he didn't know that you were gonna bust at the.
No.
Damn.
So I got hit, you know. I got
They
hit.
shot back.
Yeah,
The
I
cops
got,
shot
I, got,
back.
I got hit and I hit the floor and they went through the whole process, of course, you know, securing the area and everything. And, you know, like I was missing half my finger. I'm shot in my legs. Like, and even at that point, like, you know, it's crazy because I looked at my transcripts after, like, when I'm getting ready to go to board. And, like, you instantly, like, when you do something bad, you say, oh, I'm sorry. Right? But, like, I was wondering, like, man, was my apology based on, like, on empathy, like, based on remorse? Was it based on something that was real, or was it just because I got caught? You know?
Super important
And-
realization or question, you know what I mean?
I had to really question that because I did, and then I quickly went on to banging. Like, these officers were, of course, reading me my rights or whatnot, and then I'm over here just like half a finger and I'm banging, you know, and I'm proud of what I did.
So you knew you were shot, you knew you were bleeding everywhere, you didn't think you were gonna die or anything like that?
You know, at that point, like, really, like, I didn't think that, like, I just kind of like, I'm zoned out, bro. I'm numb. I'm numb to this shit. I'm numb to it, you know. I do remember, like, I had this little Virgin Mary that my mother had gave me, and I was just, like, very devotional to her, like, always praying to her and just asking her for guidance and whatnot, and it's something that's in the Mexican culture. And I remember I grabbed her, and I was just like, man, if I die right now, man, please, like, forgive me for my sins, right? So, like, I had, to some extent, that spiritual side to me still, you know? And even though I was doing all these bad things, right? And I knew the impact it had. Like, at that moment, you really don't grasp it, but you know you did bad, right? Even a 3-year-old child, he knows if he did bad at that. You don't grasp it, but you know you did something that you were not supposed to, you know? And I kind of, like, set off my thing to prison. Like, I of course, I was given treatment. I was given treatment.
What happened to your crimey? Did he get hit or no?
To this day, I really don't know.
Really?
To this
But
day,
he took off?
They captured him.
Okay,
there
and then-
everything,
okay.
and he just went on his separate
His way.
his way, you know. And you know one thing, like, I take ownership, I take responsibility and accountability. At that point, I really didn't care. Like, I'm a dumb criminal. I'm like the ones, like, if we all go commit a crime, like, it was me, like, you know. So I went and go ahead and took responsibility. You know what, is me, man. Let him do, man. He's a child. Go ahead. You know, I planned this out. I thought this out. regardless if we're both in this, like, I'm the older individual in this, and I got to take ownership, and I got to move forward. So that was my state of mind when I entered the county. Like, I committed my crime, and of course, it's glorified. Like, it's like it brings you to like a higher level of respect amongst your homeboys or whatnot. So everybody's like, man, you shot at the cops. Oh, bro, that's some crazy shit. That's the shit that, some people do and don't live, or you only see on TVs, right? So at that time, I didn't see it that way. I didn't see it like, I did it because I knew it was going to bring me this type of, like, respect, or it was going to cause this ripple effect. No, I did it because this is a lifestyle I was living, and this is what I had come to, right? But it doesn't help when you enter, LA County, and you got older homeboys, hey, bro, much respect, this and that, and you lived and you survived, and now you get to work up the ranks and do whatever it is that you want to do. So I almost felt that I didn't have to try harder because of what I was already incarcerated for.
Got you. Just saying that, and I think anywhere, that can apply anywhere. When you're dealing in, like, the criminal aspect, anything against the cops is always something that's going to be, okay, good job, because you're on the other side of that fence, of that lifestyle, So whether it's here, anywhere in the country. So when you got hit, they didn't treat you any different. They didn't lead, So now I think the differences between then and now, they probably had chirps at most at that time, if that, right?
Yeah, they had chirps. Yeah, smartphones were not even like, you know what I'm saying? Where you at?
Yeah,
that was the thing back then.
You got any minutes or something like that?
Yeah, you got any minutes? Like, that was the whole little thing on that.
So, yeah, I'm thinking along the lines of, like, you didn't get to see the shit like you do now, where you're like, fool, you shoot at the cops, it's a death sentence now. So having all that, and then, like, I'm assuming you get shot, you would think from the videos we see now, they leave you, like, they're not going to give you no attention. They're not going to want to call the ambulance.
I feel, even though that it was 15 years ago, we were, like, that example for what goes out now. Ooh. Like, what I think about it, like, when I was getting ready to go to board, and I was going through my rehabilitation process, and I would turn on the TV, and you would see all these things that happen, right, within the brown and black community, like, and you see officers getting sentenced and whatnot, and shootings are happening, and individuals going through his neighborhood, he's just a kid, and he's getting shot. Like, I think back, one day I sat back and I was watching, because we've seen all these things that happen, right? George Floyd and all, and I'm sitting in my cell like, bro, like, I caused that, right? I caused that ripple effect. And my celly's like, no, you didn't, bro. Like, you had nothing to do with that crime. I'm like, well, of course I did. If you think about it, bro, I am the reason why a LA police officer doesn't approach the gun and tells you, how you doing, sir? Can I see your license and registration? Man. Like, how are you doing today? It's a beautiful day. I'm just stopping you for a driver infraction and whatnot, this and that. No, I'm the reason why the officer comes to you and his gun's already out.
To avoid the situation.
To avoid the situation, because it's trauma. It's generational trauma. It's something that it's a ripple effect. This conversation we're having now, it's a ripple effect. It's something that perhaps it might not change somebody tomorrow, but perhaps it can change somebody in 50 years, 100 years, or however long we're going to be on this earth, And I feel that my actions on that day was a ripple effect, So now we see what goes on TV. Like, you can't blame an individual for valuing his life, right?
Yeah.
He's a man just like you. He's a woman just like you.
And he's working a 9 to 5. He's just trying to get in, get out.
And you respond to a hostile environment, and you respond to these communities like LA, South Central, Watts, Compton. Like, what do you expect? I grew up with that mentality. It was always like, man, F the police. F this. You don't call the cops when something's going on. Someone breaks into your house, you pull out and you bust. Yeah. We had signs in our house that said, man, don't mind the dog, beware of owner, and it had a big old 357. How do you even explain that in your community?
Correct.
Right? Officers don't show up. So I grew up in that system. And then, you take it and you put it and you apply it to my crime. And then afterwards, when you start going through the rehabilitation process and you start finding healing and you start finding answers and you start trying to adjust your way of thinking, then you look at it, it's like, bro, like, these are men and women just like me, right?
Crazy what time and getting older does to you, huh? Yeah. That's the crazy part.
You start now. You get it. So talk to us about that day when they're giving you the sentencing, because I know that's a wild story. You went from a very high number, and it's just
Yeah.
Real quick, what I'm interested to know. So there's these stories that if you get busted for shooting at a cop, that the cops beat you up left and right. Did that happen?
I played the fan.
Yeah.
Nah,
Yeah, there you go.
I heard those. Like, you
like,
do not want to be in there for shooting at a cop.
One thing, I got my ass whooped, man.
By the sheriffs.
I got my ass whooped. I got my ass whooped. Any opportunity they had, I got my ass whooped. And back then it was when they had them when the whole
The crew or whatever.
the crew and you know, not
The
to give
swole head,
here
right?
with
Like
names,
the
but,
roids,
you know, the
cats,
steroids,
yeah.
the people they indicted and everything,
Yeah.
right? And at that time, like, I was getting my ass whooped.
Fuck.
Like, those are things I don't talk to my wife about, my brothers, my family. Like, I don't even discuss them with just any regular Joe Blow, because, like, for me, it was like the lifestyle. This was what I had coming. I accepted that, right? Like, you know, my mother and my grandmother, like, they would show up to visit me visit me like at 8 a.m, and they don't see me until like 4 p.m. Why is that? Right?
They read what you did, and they're like, "Oh, this dude."
And then you tend to like, hey, bro, whatever you do, don't get into the elevator with these dudes, right? Or don't take the stairs, because mysteriously you'll fall down, right? And I got to experience all that. I really did. Like, I got to have my arm broken. And you know,
By the same
individual. So
yeah.
And I knew it, but it's just like the punishment. I knew that the punishment was self-inflicted.
Okay.
Like,
yeah.
I like, hey, bro, like, I know I did this shit to you, and you know, at that time, like, you know, you have officers come and they know what you're incarcerated for, and they're coming to your cell and they're not giving you breakfast, right? They're not giving you breakfast, or you don't get a juice. So, like, mentally, you're already getting fucked, you know? And then, hey, excuse me, sir, I didn't get mail. I don't give a fuck.
Damn, just thinking
You know,
about
like,
even those small things, like even your mail's all messed up now. You like ruin the chances of any little luxury, like whatever, mail, hygiene, anything or whatever, a plate of food, like you said, man. That's fucking nuts to think that.
And it's crazy because you ask, and then your door gets open, and all you hear is the keys coming.
They go in there.
And you go in there. So at that point, you're like, bro, how do I do this? How do I fight? Like, do I just lay down? What do I do? Because if I put tips on this fool and I end up winning, I'm going to get jumped.
Okay.
I'm going to get fucked up. And then I'm going to get an ad charge. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like, you have to adapt and you have to learn how to survive in that situation. And like, I honestly, bro, like, LA County fucking made me. It broke me and then it made me. Because I was like, you know what? If I can get through this shit, I can get through anything in life. Right? Like, I know what it is to have a fucking 300-pound individual, you know, like, just laying over your ass and just, like, giving it to you and you're hopeless. And I was like a fucking $150 at the time. Like,
It's manhandling you. Yeah, those
you're
fucking
being
dudes are-
manhandled.
yeah.
And not alone, but you're trying to recover from your physical wounds.
So this happened while you were still.
While I was still, while my hand was healing, while my knee was healing, you know, like, there's a lot of things that I was still going through, right? And you're still trying to process your situation.
And I want to say that I love the fact that you said you're not judging them for that, because you're saying I did fuck up, I did what I did. Right. So is that a good, you know, just because, and I know we're gonna get it, and they're right in the comments that people say, oh, but he did this, you know. Yeah. You don't think it's right that they, again, I'm not saying right or wrong, but again, there's a system for everything, and they use the system wisely for everything else. Why not stay within those lines? But when it comes to something like that, they want to go outside of it, you know.
Yeah, well, because
and
at the
get
end
their
of the
little
day,
2 cents in.
You have people, you know, we have people. And if I was willing to sit there and terrorize my community, and I was willing there to, you know, aim this gun and shoot at these officers, like, they're people just like me. So emotions come out. Yes. And a lot of times it's like, well, these people got to be professional. You know, they took an oath. Like, okay. Like, I'm not sitting here and campaigning for these motherfuckers either, but like it was a two-way street. You know, it was a two-way street.
Definitely.
And an individual, like, when you sign up for it, you need to understand, like, this is what you're signing up for. right? And how do you get the proper training, and how do you get the proper understanding of how to deal with individuals that are coming into the prison system, you know, and whatnot, and they're dealing with certain things. And then not only that, but you're taking it personal because now it's a revenge thing, right? And like, these are things that I feel that you can get all the training in the world, but at the end of the day, you're human, so you're gonna have a natural instinct.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. That's what it is, you know. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but definitely, you know, I'm glad that you just said it is what it is. That's part of it. They're human. They had to go back to their wives. So when they see you, they're probably a little hot because they're like, you know, you could have taken one of my partners. They probably call each other brothers. One of my brothers away from his.
Yeah.
You know, so then it's fucked up because the broken arm situation that you just mentioned. I've heard of stories like dudes damn near getting. I've definitely seen the dudes no teeth. You know. Over not even a shooting, like they could say assault on a cop. I used to hear stories where dudes would get beat up for that by them, you know. But again, are they in the right? I don't fucking know, but it's definitely something to touch on. You know?
The other perspective too that I was telling T now is like now that you're out, it's the idea is like when you call the cops, now you're expecting them to come and save you.
Well, hopefully, yeah. You want to follow every rule now. Like,
Yes.
You know, we were just driving the other day with me and my wife, and there was this solid yellow line, you know, and babe, can we pass that? We can't pass that, man. In the book, it says you can't pass solid line. Correct. She's like, you can do it here. I'm like, okay, you know.
Yep.
But like you're second guessing, and you're really
Correct.
wanting to abide by the rules and regulations of what society has, you know, like because you've learned like, and it goes back into like, you know, we'll touch a little bit, but it goes back into like the prison, like corrections and rehabilitation, right?
Yeah.
Like most people don't really get it for what it is. Like you going into this prison system, and what is the prison system? Corrections department, right? Is there to correct your ass,
Right,
you know,
right.
and to add some type of rehabilitation, whether you take it or not, whether you make an excuse. It's at the end of the day, it's there.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That you articulated it the way that I had always pictured it. Is like that place made me so fearful of the law. You know, because I know the consequences. I know getting into a bar fight can end up with 15 years. Discharging a firearm, another 25 years. I never knew these things. You're living like a movie when you're a teenager, not knowing that you fuck, you know, your whole life will be thrown away in an instant, you know.
It sets you straight. It
Sets you straight, man.
You know, like I remember at 19, I got sent off to prison, like, and then like, you know, they send you to reception. You know, it's the process, right? So they send you to reception. And then, like, everybody's getting their bags. You know, people are going to Corcoran, Calipad, and, you know, High Desert, and whatever is it that they're going to. And then you get my bag, and it's just, like, Pelican Bay State Prison. Like...
That was your first spot?
That was my first spot.
That was your first...
So it was just
man.
like, oh, shit. Like, I remember, like, I didn't speak to my family for a while, right? Like, this was almost, like, 3 or 4 months. Like, even a little longer. And I called one day, and... You hear my mom, my sister on this side of the phone, and they're crying. They're like, "Why did they send you to Pelican Bay?
Far as
like
fuck.
that is a prison that's designed for gang members. Like, Mom, I'm a gang member. Like, really, like.
Man, that's kind of crazy.
But their mind
man,
is
yes.
like they're afraid because of what they see on you know the internet or whatnot, right? And it's designed to hide, you know, to house your maximum. You know,
Yes.
That's what you just said is really interesting to me though. That family component. They don't even see you as a gang member, but you literally have
No,
gang
you're
member
still
on your hat. It says gang member.
yeah.
That's like
But-
the joke. Dicen, what do they say? Like, oh no, this is mi hijo. That's just my baby. That's my kid.
That-
he ain't nothing.
They,
he ain't
they
never
see
did
you
nothing.
with different eyes.
That's family though.
They see
That's,
you with different
yeah.
eyes, and I think that at that point too, though, like I had to really start assuring my mom and kind of tell her, like, Mom, like I'm not who you think I am. You know, like she would always tell me, like, you know, I'm always gonna be there for you regardless of what we've gone through. But I would be like, Mom, you know what? You should save the conversations with your friends of trying to paint a perfect picture. Like, this is what it is. Like, your son is a fuck up, you know?
Shit.
And, like, I mean, the love of a mother, like, bro, like,
That's your mom's.
that's your
No
mom.
matter
Like,
what.
regardless
Yeah.
if, you know, she always told me, I don't care if they send you to Russia, China, or whatnot, wherever you're housed, I'm going to go see you. And, like, that's commitment, bro. You don't
Yeah.
get that from anybody, you know? And that's big because regardless of what we went through, like, regardless if there was turmoil there, like, at the end of the day, it's like, you know what, I gave you life. I'm going to go see you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think just instinctual, that's the role of a parent to their kids, no matter who they are. You know, that's just, you have to be that's how I feel towards my kid, you know?
Yeah.
I don't care who, it could be the worst kid ever, but to me, it's my kid. It's just,
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to hold him on a pedestal. Real quick, so how much did they sentence you to?
36 years.
36 years with
36
half or
years.
with?
36 years.
They were talking about life,
at one
though.
point, I had 2 life sentences. At one point,
Yeah.
it was like 2 life sentences and nothing was happening.
That
you
was a
know?
deal.
That was a deal. You know? And you sit there and you're like, 2 life sentences, like, well, fuck. I remember my attorney had came into the little room where they keep you before you go, and she was like, Mr. Ernesto Sanchez, you got to take, either you have to take life, or if you go to trial, you're still going to get life. I was like, well, how does that make any sense? So a day before my trial.
How does that make any?
Yeah,
you're saying the
like-
deal is life or I lose life? Where am I?
Where am I? And then this is like a paid attorney. You know, like
Oh,
this
so
is
no
like,
PD, no state
money,
appointed?
Money was dropped on her, you know?
No way.
Money was dropped because they were gonna hang your boy. Like they're
Yes.
I'm gone, right? And I guess that at that point, like hiring attorneys and then, you know, trying to do that part, it affects it in a major way. But I remember the lady came in, I'll never forget this because she told me, it was like right before like we were gonna pick you know, go to trial, like, and she's like, oh, you should take 36 years. Like, you'll be good. I'm like, what do you mean take 36 years and I'll be good? She's like, yeah, I had a friend that took 40 years and he's home after 25 years. And I'm like,
What the fuck?
here you have this lady, and not to just categorize, but here you have this white lady telling you this. And I remember I was hot. I was like, you know what? I was like, you take those fucking 36 years and then you tell me how that shit went. Because at this point, you're offering me 36 years with 2 strikes, right?
So not even just 36 and
Like, here's 2 strikes,
And
go
take
fuck
the
up.
2
Like, go
strikes.
catch life in prison.
Yeah.
Like, we're just gonna hang you. We're just gonna give it to you for what it is, right?
And at that time, youngsters going up there with 2 strikes, you're more than likely, especially with that type of sentence, you're eventually going to catch the extra strike. So 3 strikes, you're out.
Yeah,
In
and you
prison.
can catch
In
it.
prison.
You
In
can
prison,
catch
right.
it
For
simply.
anything.
You can catch
Yeah.
it simply with drugs, a knife, a stabbing,
That's a strike.
or an attempted murder or a murder. You know.
Fucked.
And I remember that, like, my mom was like, please, she's like, if you take this, my mom was like, if you take this, this will give you an opportunity. I was like, an opportunity to what? To live 36 years in prison and come out. If I come out, I'm like,
Yeah.
Mom, the rate that I'm going, I won't even probably see the 5 years. You know? Sure enough, like, I took the 36 years.
So you after a bunch of back and forth,
Yeah.
I'm sure you were at like not with terms with it. You're battling it in your head. I went through a similar situation with my brother when we got sentenced. So I can understand how just the idea that you are forced, it's weird, forced to willingly sign for that much time.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense to you because but then again, you're like, okay, there's no life sentence. So I'm going to go ahead and put my signature knowing damn well that you don't want to serve that, but,
Yeah.
there's no alternative.
But you have to. And then when you're in LA County at the time, like, they say LA County is a lot better. I hope it is. But you don't want to sit in LA County. You sit down, you catch MRSA.
Yeah.
You know? Like, you turn around, you're fighting.
Like this shit was big too. Even when in 2009 when I was there, it's basically staff was prevalent throughout all the county jail,
Like,
and that's basically a
you
version
can
of it.
put, you have a payphone and you can put it, you know, close to your cheek, and you wake up tomorrow morning and you have a big bump on your face.
Yeah.
Type thing, you know?
From how dirty and the amount of people that get moved left and right, like sanitation wasn't a big thing, I guess. So people were literally, I guess in the MMA world, I heard you go to those gyms, if they don't clean these mats, people are getting these crazy staph infections.
Right, I can see that.
Same thing with the prison. So you can imagine even more so because no one's, you're eating off of
And if you
rusty
have
bunks,
entry
you know?
wounds, if you have entry wounds,
Oh, man.
and then I had entry wounds. So it's like, you know, you have my leg that's, you know, half blown out, and then it's just like, man, like, I'm easily exposed to this.
That shit eats at your skin though.
It would tear, it would eat at your bone, you know, so you're traumatized.
I had it right here, low key, and that shit would just like easily just start. You slowly just start to grow.
Really?
Yeah.
What? Don't look at me like that, dog. Hey, it was high school, dog.
Those
It
are
was-
things that, like, you're sitting in the county, you're like, you know what, like, I'm gone, man. I gotta get the fuck out of here. You know, so it's kind of like you want to go upstate because people tell you, hey, when you get upstate, you get a TV, you get a hot pot, you know, you get jobs and you get this and you get that. So you're like, fuck, I want to go up prison already. I don't want to stay here, right? And yeah, I got sent off to prison and you know, my situation, I got sent to Pelican Bay and I quickly got involved and I quickly, you know, started just trying to become more involved, right? Learn the ins and outs of things. And for my thing, it was like, you know what? Like, I want to get to a higher position, right?
Among that world? That's what you were striving for
amongst that world. And, you know, I was at that time, I was kind of like, I took it as a blessing because I was amongst men that, like, whether they were my cellies or my mentors in prison, they were like, well, this is how you have to do things. And this is what you do and this is what you don't do. So, like, I quickly had to, like, grow.
You had to turn into adult fast.
Exactly. And I'm thankful for it because it got to a point where, like, you can see my mentors were looking at me like, that's right, fool. Like, like, you know, and then these are dudes that, you know, we talked about early on, like, you're missing that father figure. Like, I didn't have older brothers, right?
Got you.
So you're seeing these dudes and they're like, man, that's right, fool. Like, do your shit, you know, and you're acting out and you're committing certain things and whatever it is, and that's kind of like what your life becomes, bro. Like, and you're sitting there and you don't think you're going home. Like, you're just trying to get through that 24 hours, right? And that's what my mind had really just become, right? The lifestyle of being a gang member.
Wow. So at this point, how old were you when you got sent up there? 19 or something?
19.
So you only fought your case for not that long, man.
No.
For that type of crime, remember we said it before. Normally those crimes, I see dudes in there for attempts for 3-4 years.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
Just fighting the case before you even get sentenced. Did you know that bus ride was going to be that long?
Hell no. I didn't know.
How far is
Redwood up towards Oregon.
You have to basically go through Oregon and come back out and go like into California again to be at the Del Norte, Humboldt County, whatnot.
You were coming from here, right?
I came from Delano. I went from Delano.
Reception.
Reception all the way to the Bay, and it was just like the longest. And then you get down, and then of course you hear it through movies, you watch it through documentaries, and then you're like, you get down, and it's like, don't look down, look up. Like, what the fuck?
Really?
Like, like don't look down. You gotta look up. So you're coming out the bus, and you're like looking up, and I don't know for whatever the fuck they do that, whether it's a scare tech. I don't know.
To the sky?
Like, yeah, look up, don't look down.
What the fuck?
So they're escorting you to wherever you need to go, looking up.
That's fucking
and not until
scary.
you get into a small room or whatever, then you can look down. So like this like
That's
this
new.
shit,
Yeah, I've never heard
you're
of that.
being affected by it because you're like, what the fuck? But then that persona starts evolving too, because now you got them shackles, but you're walking like, I'm in the Bay, bro. Like, you know, this is where the big boys are at, right?
You already kind of had that idea of that place already?
Yes.
From the county and all that, right? It was like,
yeah, like when people like I remember I was in reception. I remember one of my roommates was like, bro, you're going to the Bay? I'm like, why? He's like, I've been dying to go up there. Like, what the fuck you talking about?
Right,
like you
what?
just told me this is like a place that's 20 hours away. He's like, yeah, but it's a good place up there. Like,
it sucks, food. That's when you're thinking ass backwards like that. That's the place where you want to go or you want to be to say you made it. I guess I get.
It's
right?
like kind of like the Yale and the Stanford of universities.
That's a great way to put
it.
Like
you're looking at it, right? And at that time when I went, like, it was rocky. It was still rocky. There was nothing that was taking place as far as recreational things and nothing like
rehabilitation programs. None of that was big.
This was like I couldn't go to school, right? And if I did, it was just for certain things, and that's it. You know, and you weren't being moved. Like, these were when lockdowns. This is way before the hunger strikes and everything took place, because this is when you would be on lockdown for about a year, 6 months. And people would order you a package, and your fucking package would be there for like months. You know, and you would be eating some stale ass honey buns.
Really? Fuck.
You know? And like in the opportunity, you did have to go to store. You don't go buy chips and beans. No, you go buy about $400 worth of soups. Because you know that hey, we're going back on lockdown, and I need a soup for every fucking day of the week that we're potentially gonna go hungry.
How often was lockdown happening in Pelican?
At that time, it was happening. It was happening. It was happening more frequent than what it is now. Now they have a system which is no 14 days. Lockdowns can be no longer than 14 days. But that took place after the hunger strike.
Yeah.
Which is the hunger strike is something that I also participated under.
Oh, really?
Right, I
Oh,
was
whoa,
gonna ask
15.
that,
You were
yeah.
there that
Yeah,
long.
yeah.
So we touched on that, and the reason I told Brian, I was like, we got to bring it up just because that became one of like the changing points for a lot of the stuff that was going on in there, you know, and it brought a lot of positive attention and a lot of good stuff to prison for those that want to help out. Because now, luckily, we can't say that no more. If I get somebody out here that tells me there wasn't shit in there for me, stop it. There's a lot of things
Like,
there.
yeah,
you know?
bro, like people die, bro.
Yeah.
People
Yeah.
like, you know, people sacrifice things in order for somebody else to be successful and having opportunities. Like, I don't talk about the hunger strike, and I don't even like, even when I started changing, I don't tell, man, I was in Pelican Bay, I did the hunger strike. Like, nah, we knew what we needed to do when we were there, and it was a direct order, and it was like, okay, hey, I'm gonna do this shit, right? And like, all my shit was sent home. Like, you know, you're stripped away from everything.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And for me, it was kind of like, it was a conditioning though type thing, because I had already been to the hole. I had already been to like the shoe, and even when I was in the shoe, I was limited to my diet, right? What I was eating, what I was intaking, because I had to stretch out my food, you know? So being in this hunger strike kind of was like, you know what? I already eat small portions of food, right? And it just kind of like, it was something that I did. And then like, I don't want to say that I wasn't proud of it, but at least I was part of something that made a difference. Because
That's important.
It helped a lot of individuals, whether it was with more recreational time, with more things that can help them, you know, come out of prison. It took like a ripple effect. It took a ripple effect, and I mean, those are things that like they impact you, bro. Like they really leave something in you, and they're like, man, I was part of that, and this is what I did, and that was part of my life, you know.
What was like your lowest point out there? Like your lowest point going through that?
You know,
That you could recall?
during the hunger strike or after?
Or during the sentence.
During the hunger first. During the hunger, and then from
During
the sentence.
during the hunger, my lowest point was like, you know what? It was not until after.
After the hunger.
After, because I remember my mother went to go see me.
Mm-hmm.
All the way up there, huh?
All the way up there.
Man, tip your hat to your moms.
And
that's a drive.
I remember our building wasn't cleared, you know? And I remember...
What do you mean by that? I don't
Like,
know.
like, as in-
So at that time, like, I mean, you put everybody on lockdown, right? So not to get too much into the small details of it, but like they're clearing buildings by buildings to actually start programming.
Oh, okay. So
Right?
like, you know,
Yeah.
other people mentioned it before when they just to see what's going to happen or how
to
people react.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And by my luck, my building wasn't... I was supposed to get cleared, I think it was like on a Saturday, and we didn't get cleared till like Sunday. So my mother went up there to go see me, and
Oh, man.
they're like, well, we apologize, you can't see your son. Fuck. Like, you can see him, but it's only for an hour or two. So
And not physically either,
not
probably, right?
physically,
Behind
this
that
is behind the glass. So, like, at that point, I think we had already spent more than enough time without seeing each other. And I remember that when I showed up to the window, like, you see me how I am now.
Okay, did you have the tattoos before?
No, I had them when I was incarcerated.
And your mom hadn't seen you with the tats?
Oh shit.
So you just like, you imagine like you just see this grown ass individual now with, you know, more than enough tattoos.
Yes.
And then you see my little brothers, and my little brothers were like, what the fuck? You know?
Question on that. Do you what did you feel in that moment, or were you even on that like was that your train of thought? My thing would have been like, depending on where I was at, right? After 2-3 years, I was already like, fuck, I don't want nothing to do with this place. Like seeing the look on him, look at you with that, I would hate to have seen some little spark of like, that's my big brother. He's fucking cool.
I think the one that's after me did. Right?
okay.
Because the one that's after me, he's sometimes straddles, the fine line, but I think it was for him. He was like, whoa, like that's my brother, and he was fucking up too at the time too, but it was also my little brother was just more like, because my little brother, I know that he has this love for me. I know he does. Like since he was a kid, I got to take care of him because my mother was sick at the time when she had him. Mm-hmm. So I had really took care of him, and we had made that connection. So, me going off to prison, I know that it impacted him a lot, right? And then, of course, you see my mother. My mother, it broke her. Like, you just like, fuck, like, I completely lost you, bro. Like, you've become what this place is,
Right. Literally, like the perfect image of it. Yeah. Technically. Were you like the man of the house technically before you got busted? Is that?
No. Okay. I had a stepfather. My stepfather was involved, but it was just like, I didn't acknowledge my stepfather.
Okay.
I didn't, I didn't have no respect for him. Why? Because I still had that kind of like conflict, like that inner turmoil too of like, you're not my father, bro. Like you're the father of these two kids, but you're not my father.
Yeah.
So I was just like, you can't tell me shit, And that's how it kind of was. Like, he never really had a direct word towards us, right? Gotcha. Because it was just like, well, you're not my dad. And I was a little dick, I was like, fuck.
You were in your own world.
Yeah, I let it be known that, hey, I'm not going to really abide by your rules. Like, you're not the man of the house, at least for me. Like, my dad's my dad,
Yeah.
But it's kind of weird how that even plays out at the end, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and the only reason I mention it is because, that would have been more just something compounded to the issues that your mom was already having with missing you, especially if you were the one helping with the kids and changing diapers. And that's how I had to do it, with my mom. Yeah. We were latchkey kids, so we had to take care of the little ones and do all, make biberon and damn. Okay. So how much time did you spend in the Bay? Was that your whole term or the majority of it?
I got to spend from 2008, early on 2008, all the way to 2015.
So that was a good chunk of time. Your points never went down, nothing, huh?
No, my points didn't go down. I remained with high points, it being the stuff that I got involved in. And really what got me there was just the change. I end up just kind of stepping away from everything. But even that was a process.
Correct.
Even that was a process. And the process was basically like, I had to basically step away from everything. And not to any like conflict or anything. It was just that a motherfucker like started experiencing shit mentally and emotionally. Mm-hmm. Like I started having some type of like epiphanies and started reflecting. Like, there was things.
This was after like the visit with your mom, ideally.
Yes, this was. Yeah,
because you didn't really finish. If we could finish that real quick, because I feel like we didn't.
After the visit,
you're right. Yep.
Yeah, after the visit, it pretty much just went to the same stuff.
Uh-huh.
Like I went back to my cell and lived my life being in prison. But it was not until episodes started happening in my life at around the time of 2013 at the end, where things were like kind of like, you really start questioning your environment, right? Because I'm a very analytical individual. I do a lot of introspective work on myself. I like to, be present inside. Doesn't mean that I'm perfect or anything. No, it means that I'm strongly aware of who I am, how I feel, and what I do. And at that time, I had developed those things, right? So you start questioning your environment. Why is it that I'm the dude going to the hole? Why is it that I'm this? Why is it that I'm that?
Important questions.
Why is it that I don't have shit? Like, why is it that I'm at a certain age and this is what I've come to, right? You can sit here and you be like, man, well, this is what I signed up for. Like, I was raised into this shit, but that's not the reality. Mm-hmm. The reality is that you accepted this individual, right? You accepted this lifestyle and it brought you to this point, but you start questioning when you start getting like really good people in your life, like really good people. I'm not talking about like, these are people that are invested in you, that I really want you to succeed.
And right? You're talking about other inmates, other lifers,
not even at that.
Okay.
Like other people outside of the prison system.
Okay.
For instance, like my wife.
There you go.
Like when I met my wife, like this was an individual that at that point was like, you know what, like this is a girl that got her life together, right? She has both mom and dad. Like I remember one time, I like humor. I was like, girl, like you got all your teeth. She's like, yeah, I got all my teeth. She's like, what type of girls you be dating? I'm like, yeah, well, half the girls I know, they miss your teeth, you know, like
you'd be surprised who writes motherfuckers in jail.
Yeah,
Huh? Like,
I was like, but it was just because of the lifestyle, you know. They had like 5 kids, you know. They
damn, you're right. I didn't, yeah.
And it doesn't make them bad girls, but it doesn't make them the girl that you would want for yourself for the future, right? And I remember, you know, like it bringing my wife's here, and I brought it up many times, and this is how I took it in. You know, sometimes people say things, we just take it in a whole different way.
Yeah.
Like I was interested in her, right? She's educated, she's a good woman, she comes from a good background, good work ethics and everything. Both mom and dad, which is something I didn't have. So I was just like, man, like this is like a game changer right here. Like, and I was like, man, would you want to be with someone like me? She's like, well, no, because you ain't got no life. You know?
Oh, that was stated. Right, like, hey,
whether
this is what
was,
it is.
Whether it was word for word, but that's how it made me feel.
Mm-hmm. But at least I could tell it instilled something in you, though, to be like.
It did. It got me mad. I was
this
like,
can't be it.
I was like, you know what, man, fuck this girl. Like, you know how many girls I can get and girls I can come across, but it was just like this was the truth. No one had ever told me that. This was the first person that had told me that, you know, and that's why I say like when good people come into your life,
okay,
right, like that gave me an opportunity to just sit back and be like, bro, like I'm a piece of shit. Like, I really don't have nothing to offer anyone. Like, I have to offer all my homeboys, but what do they have to offer me?
There you go.
Right? Like, we can sit here and say we ride together. Like, man, I just fucking took 36 years. I don't see none of my homeboys here. You know? Like, I don't get no packages. I don't get anything. Everything I do, and I did to that present moment of being incarcerated, I did it and it came out of me. And it came out of hard work ethic, whether it was extortion, whether it was all these things that I did in that lifestyle, right? Nothing came from an individual saying, you know what, bro, here, you know, and genuinely try to help me.
Yeah.
And when she came into my life at that time, unfortunately, I had lost both my grandparents. And to me, my grandparents were like probably like just what it was for me to one day hoping to have what they had. Right? Which was what they brought into the family, the culture, the love, everything else.
That big family.
That big family, right? You know? And at times I was like, yeah, I want to have 10 kids. And now I have one. I was like,
that's plenty.
We're good right now. We probably have one more later on, but it's difficult. So just watching that my grandparents did that and then losing them and then me being behind bars while I lost them, it was like an impact. It was an impact because it was like, bro, like, I can't even attend to their funeral.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Like, and I remember I spoke to my grandfather, and he was, like, actually already passing. He had colon cancer. And I remember I talked to him, and, you know, I'm in the phone, and these are 15-minute phone calls in the Bay. And at the time, I didn't have a job, so you only get one call a month. You know?
Oh, really, huh?
Yes.
You got to have a job.
Yeah, this was at
probably
the time.
Even yard, too?
Yeah,
huh?
yeah, yard, yeah.
Damn.
So I remember my grandfather had told me, like, basically, get your shit together, bro. Like, you need to come home. You know, and for me, that, like, even though I respected my grandfather, and I think that he's probably, like, the highest in
like
our
a
family.
Role model, it sounds.
Of a role model. I never really, like, took it in, right? And you really don't take things in till you lose someone. Mm-hmm. You know, and
That's true.
And I took it in, and I was just like, you know what? That's it. I need to fucking make a change. I need to make a change, and I need to get the fuck out of this place. Because I even told my wife at the time when she was my friend, I was like, you paved the way for somebody else, right? I'm going to get my shit together. I'm going to go get my GED. I'm going to go to college. I'm going to go do all these things that I'm supposed to be doing. Did I know these things were going to be available? No. Did I know it was going to be easy? No. I just knew that I wanted something different, right? That I was ready to make that change. Yeah. And it's kind of crazy because, you know, they passed these laws that I qualify for, which is like the juvenile.
I'm assuming it's SB 260?
Yeah,
SB 261.
SB 261. And they say that the human mind doesn't fully develop until the age of 25. Well, guess what? At 25, a motherfucker started maturing. You know? And when I made that decision, it wasn't easy. like, to this point, it was like, sometimes I do miss being a certain way, right? Not bad, of course, not a criminal, not a gang member, but you tend to lose those characteristics and you become kind of a humble individual. You no longer become that gorilla or that individual is like, you know,
The
hitting his
aggression just,
chest,
just
the
ready,
aggressive.
yeah.
No, you no longer come into a room and you just make that presence like, nah. Like the individual that I am now is just like, hey, my name's Ernesto. How you doing? You know, like bro, you don't add up, you know?
Yeah.
And I had to like basically try to find myself again. And man, bro, like God's good because I ended up in Corcoran State Prison. It was a shoe kickout yard. And I got there and I remember that it was just like the worst place in the state of California.
Corcoran, really?
Corcoran.
Oh, you know,
Worse
someone did mention that because it was a kick-out yard, it was the worst.
Yes, it was the
I
worst yard you can be in the state of California. I'm talking about, we were speaking earlier about this, like, I seen so many homicides, I seen so many suicides, I seen so many overdoses, I seen so many things that if I felt that even the county or the Bay was even, like, this was just like, bro, this right here is corruption to the fullest. Right? Like anything they talk about Corcoran that was, you know, whether it was back in the days, the gladiator fights. And, you know, the corruption of in there, it had that. It had that. And drugs were booming. Phones were like the thing. People were throwing phones. They were probably like one step away from giving you a phone in R&R, a cell phone, you know?
That was a 4-yard too?
That was a 4-yard.
Okay.
So you started seeing all this stuff. What? How many years are you in now? When you get
at that point, I'm already probably like on my 10th year.
Okay.
Like 10th year. So
Damn, 10 years
it
before
was like, man, bro, like being like at my 10th year, you know, and when I say that it was bad, like that prison was bad, bro.
Then this is SADF. This is
old Corcoran.
Old Corcoran,
This is
okay.
old. We housed Charles Manson, the potato
Yeah.
killer, Juan Corona type, you know,
Gotcha.
things. Like we housed the dudes that killed Bill Cosby's son. Like this is right here. You're housing high maximum like weirdos, killers, all type of people. They just put them all in one pot, right? So you have different units, of course, different yards and different things, but you just catch like everything there. You know, and then the officers, they're just a different breed.
so even that
Like-
culture went past even the inmates to the officers themselves.
Like you know, whether you had officers that were probably more enhanced than LA County officers, like you have big old white dudes, you know, like, and they're just testing you,
Yeah.
right? But you know what? It gave me an opportunity to be at a good playing field. Because I was like, okay, you know what? I can sit here and I can go two ways. I can go back to selling dope, you know, buying a gang of phones, you know, cracking a CO to bring in more dopes and phones. I can do all these things. Or I can just take advantage of what they have to offer.
Yeah.
Right? And it wasn't easy because you had dudes hitting me up and you had individuals proposing things and, hey, we could do this, we could do that. And you had dudes that stopped talking to me that I knew from childhood, right? Like, oh man, you're a weirdo. You know, you want to change. Like,
You want to go to school.
like,
you want to go to college.
like,
what?
You go to school? Did you go to college? Like, yeah, bro. Like, I want to educate myself. Like, oh man, you're a weirdo. You know, like, damn, you go to groups all day. Like, who does that? Like, well, I do. You know, like the guy that wants to go home, right? And I literally like had to build this different persona being there. Like, you know, people talk about like code switching, right? Like I had to really like code switch. Like I had to put in a different type of because I had to survive, right? I remember that, you know, I had a lot of liberty because of the things that I was doing. You know, I had got involved very early on in the kids program. You know, 3 years in, I became the president. So it gave me that.
Oh man, you were
leniency
doing your stuff.
Yeah, it gave me that leniency to move around. Like they would let me go clean places where you're not supposed to, you know, things like that, right? And you build those relationships with the officers. And since I had so much movement, individuals that were selling or whatnot, hey, Neto, hey, can you go to 5 Block? It's like, nah, man, I'm hot right now. I got some shit, you know? I didn't have nothing, bro. I had my fucking AA book and NA book, you know. But you gotta make it seem
That's
like
how you gotta do it.
You gotta do it. You got to go with the flow of what your
Where you're
environment
at.
is. And whether people respected me or not, I really didn't give a fuck, you know, because my thing was, I went to my consultation for my youth offender thing, and you know the deputy commissioner was like, "Look, man, I don't know how you're gonna get home, but you have 5 years to get your shit together."
In 5 years, because that was when you're scheduled
That
to go.
my parole hearing. My parole hearing.
So up until then, you decided to make the change before you even heard about the laws,
yes,
which is, man,
yeah.
you know.
So I actually did, and it's one of the things that I'm proud of myself, that way before laws and changes were made, I had decided to change. And that's why I feel that I'm far better off with certain individuals that I come across, because they're like, well, bro, like, either that's a facade or you just like talking in a certain way. I'm like, nah, bro, like, motherfuckers started reading way before the laws were even thought of. Like, way before all these organizations started coming in. Like, I had started doing a lot of work on myself, right? Because I had to learn it, and it was authentic. It wasn't for something that I ran away, like, oh, man, they kicked me out, so now I have to live a different lifestyle. No, I consciously made a decision to sit down in my fucking cell and say, you know what, man, like, I need to live a different life. And I need to be somebody else.
Yeah.
And I need to put the work in, right? And I had a good support network. I had my wife. I had my family. I had people that believed in me, right? And when I got to that yard, like, man, bro, like, I would take like 3-5 college classes in one day. You know, like, I'm doing correspondence. I'm coming from one class going into another class. And these are classes that are university level too at that. Nice. You know,
Who was it through? Palos Verdes or Coastline?
No, this was through Bakersfield.
Oh,
At
man,
the time,
okay.
This was Bakersfield Community College. And then I'm running groups. So then I'm running an at-risk youth group from this time to this time. And then I'm like, I have to delegate people over here. Hey, man, we're doing this. And we got an event on Wednesday where they're bringing 25 kids. So it really showed me, and it really put to work my skills of communicating with people, right? And being like, whether you say a leader, but at the end, like, I serve my people. Like, I always kind of like the dude that comes into the room, puts all the chairs together, and then I'm the last dude, and then I take the chairs out, right? Because, you know, one time this dude was like, "Whoa, man, you're always here. You don't need to be here." I'm like, "Well, bro, like, I'm alike just like everybody else, right?" And I wanted to carry those characteristics that I had in the past lifestyle, which is like, for me, it was for the people, to serve my people, to serve my homeboys, right? And I still brought those things in because my people is the incarcerated community, right? Men and women, black, brown, white, whatever it may be.
That's my philosophy,
So,
too. I love it.
I really can't distinguish nobody else, because if you went through some hard times, like, I gotta sit there and help you. You know, I feel that what you figured out and what you have is like the only way to really obtain it is by giving it to others also as well. So yeah, man, I spent that time in Corcoran, and you know, I had brought it up on the thing, and then I had got confirmation that I can actually use it, because they're like, man, we want you to share your story, you know? So in 2019, I believe, I was in a computer class. So I had become certified, and I was already the clerk. And there was this lady, and her name was Miss Fogel, you know? And she was like, this older white lady, she was like, well, you know, you need to go a place where you can prosper. Like, I'm still sitting here with level 4 points and a level 4 prison, right? And she's like, you need to go to a place where you can prosper. I'm like, well, where the fuck you go to prison where you can prosper? Like, you know, they're pretty much all the same, right?
That makes sense.
And she's like, you need to go to a level 3. And I'm like, like, level 3s, like, you know, like you hear shit about level 3s and level 2s and level 1s, right? Like,
that it's like,
But like
wild.
what?
yeah,
too
like, it's
open.
wild. The amount of
worse?
respect is not the same, and you know. But it's then you're sitting here in the yard where you're seeing about dude die, you know, once a week, and you don't want to go to this yard, right? So it doesn't make sense.
Right.
But we get comfortable in our environment, regardless if our
That's really
environment
what it
is
is.
very hectic. We still want to be there.
You gotta like start over. Almost.
You got to start over. Long story short, man, I wanted to go to a level 3, be closer to my wife, right? She lived up north, so I was trying to get into her small area.
On that note, at what point in time did that happen? Did she become your wife? The girl that had gave you that little shot and said that motivation, really,
Now,
you know?
more importantly, where was the baby? Where did the baby come from, dog?
Yeah.
Because he had a prison baby.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's a little
Conjugal visits and everything?
Conjugal visits through the pandemic.
Oh, so
too.
you know.
Really?
Through the pandemic.
No,
what
they didn't have
happened.
that. I got it in 2014. They didn't have none of that.
So in 2015, when I got to Corcoran, I had proposed to her the whole event again. Like, hey, what's up? Like,
So real after that first discussion or
we
whatever.
remained friends. We remained friends.
Okay, you remained friends, and then
friends.
that carried on.
That
Okay.
carried on. We remained friends. She's like, well, I'll be here with you. I'll be your friend, but I ain't gonna be your lover. You know,
Yeah.
like, all right, whatever. We'll be friends, but we still remain friends, right? And through the process, I got to Corcoran, and I was just like, you know what? Like, would you want to revisit the situation again? And I did. I asked her, like, would you want to be my girlfriend? Do you see yourself? Can you give me an opportunity? And I think for her, it was hard because, of course, her background and her family weren't so approving. Like, who's going to approve a dude coming into your house,
Yeah.
you know, with facial tattoos and a sentence of this and being in prison? But, like, we tried it. We tried it. We gave it a chance. And, like, it worked out. It worked out because I believe at the moment of our relationship, we were so selfish and selfless at the same time. We were selfless because I know, and I think she knows too, that I wanted what was best for her, right? Her family was disapproving of it. Like, you know, you marry that dude, we're going to disown you type shit, you know? Like,
Yeah.
But I always told her, like, family comes first. Like,
That's dope. Yeah.
Men and women come and go. But you only have one mom and one dad. That's for sure. Whether I have turmoil with my mom and I don't have a dad, like, for me, my thing was always, this is what the example of what a family should be, which is having your mom and your dad there, you know? And we gave it a chance. 2015, we started kind of like, I always say, man, since the day I met you, we got together. But she's like, no, you thought we did it, right? I fell in love instantly. And then it kind of just went on. In 2016, I proposed to her. And then 2015, I proposed to her. 2016, we got married. And then it being that I still had a lot of points and I wasn't qualified for family visits because of my previous, behavior while I was in the level 4s and in Pelican Bay. They're like, well, we can't give you family visits until a year later. And I had to break that to her, like, yeah, we can't really, we just got to be, come to visit.
Correspondence, basically.
Yeah, correspondence, or you come to visit. And we build that. We build a very authentic relationship. I believe we both bring out the best and the worst, from each other. But that's what our relationship has been. Like, I never had a friend, like I never had a really, 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 really true friend. And just like any other couple, we're going to experience, and we do experience some things, right? And she's an individual that has goals and has her family and has a direction in life. And then you come with an individual that probably didn't have no direction in life and has all this trauma and is trying to find direction and purpose. And then you're combining us together, which is very complicated, And yeah, man, we got together, we got married. When it gets to the story of me going to Pleasant Valley, I was trying to get like closer, like Jamestown type thing.
But even Pleasant Valley, it's not any nicer. You're not getting to the nicest prisons.
Pleasant Valley, it wasn't nice, but you know what? I like Pleasant Valley.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I loved Corcoran, and I feel like I'm trying to go back to Corcoran as we speak. They're trying to get me approved to go in there. But I love Pleasant Valley because Pleasant Valley, like, my son came out of there. Right?
Oh, you got memories. Man.
I got a good memory from there. I got to grow, and really it gave me an opportunity to do the things that I wanted to do, right? To create my platform, like, for upon release, right? So, like, when I bring it back to that lady, to the older lady, Miss Fogel, she's like, you need to go to a place where you can prosper. You need to go to Pleasant Valley State Prison. And I'm like, girl, like, you don't choose for me. Like, I want to go to Jamestown. Like, what are you talking about, She's like, there's so many opportunities. They got a dog program. They got this. They got that. they have a honor building. I was like, fuck, what is an honor building? Like, yeah, they got microwaves. Like, microwaves in prison? You mean like I get to warm up my food? You know?
That's crazy to even
So
think it that way.
Yeah, it is.
I didn't
see no microwave.
It was not an option. My option was to be closer to my wife. My wife's from up north in Modesto, so Jamestown and I think Mill Creek is the only two closest ones. They're like 30 minutes away, right? Man, they take me to committee, put me up for Jamestown, Mill Creek, right? 2 weeks later, I get a bag, and one of my boss tells me, hey, bro, you're not even going to those two prisons. You're going to Pleasant Valley. And I'm like, like,
which is a little bit up north, but not really. That's really Central California still.
Yeah, it's a Coalinga.
Coalinga, I've never heard of that.
Yeah, it's like the armpit. It's like the armpit of the Central Valley.
Yeah,
it's like by Clovis type thing.
The only reason I even know, I used to work PIA.
Goddamn.
Also, all Central Cali.
You gotta Google it.
They have a mental hospital in Coalinga. We used to do laundry for them, and that's the only reason why I remember that name.
So,
Coalinga.
How did I end up in Pleasant Valley?
Mm-hmm.
And I was mad when they told me Pleasant Valley. It was because of the lady, Miss Fogel, And I went back to her. I'm like, did you have something to do with this? She's like, no, I don't know. I was like, whatever, right? So I go on, pack my shit, and I leave to Pleasant Valley. I get to Pleasant Valley, and I left from a hype. Like, I left from, like, a big pedestal type prison. Like I was doing, I came out on the news, type things, like we were.
So you were that involved in everything?
I was that involved in the kids program and in my community that ABC came and the Central Valley ABC. Like I was like, oh man, like I felt good. Like here I'm in a place where I'm prospering. The officers that usually beat up everybody, they're over here being cool to me. Like I don't want to leave this place. So I for sure left the place where I had a big impact and had a big impact at me, right? So as I got to Pleasant Valley, it was just kind of like, man, like what am I gonna do? I don't know nobody here, but you're in a prison system. You know everybody pretty much, and people come across you. And I remember,
and people don't know it's as easy as I was busted with your homeboy whoop whoop, and now you guys are cool.
Yeah,
you can always
exactly. So 14 days in orientation, and then they take me to committee. After the committee, they said, hey, after you're done, Sanchez, the captain wants to talk to you. I'm like, all right.
That's all fast.
That's
to get to a new prison, still on CTQ, to not even have your property, to, hey, you're going to committee this week.
And I stepped into, and then behind the desk, you have this small individual, and he's a captain. His name's Mr. Fogel.
Hold up. Yeah. And there's a Mrs. Fogel that helped you.
So it was kind of like, I was just like,
what'd you do?
I was like,
you said what?
And then he pulled out his phone, his work phone, of course, and he's like, is this you? And it was me on my episode of ABC. And he's just like, hey, man, congratulations, on what you've been doing and everything. My wife's talked a lot about you. Whatever you want to do here, you can do it. We got we support you.
We support you.
We support you. What is it that you want to do? We have a dog program coming up. Do you want to join the dog program? Give you your own cell, everything. Wow. And I'm just like, bro, like at that point, like that was probably the only individual that I had, not because I met him in Corcoran, but that had really took an interest in helping me, right? So it kind of hit home because I'm like, man, I've never had nobody invested in me. Like, and if I did, I mean, they're all dead now, And that was kind of like the start of something different for me because I already had did the work, and then I came to an environment where I was being embraced by the captain of the yard. Like that's major.
It's pretty big, yeah.
That's major, and I used it to my greatest advantage, in the most positive, productive way, and it was kind of like. Pleasant Valley was a place where I was able to, I talked about it in previous settings where I felt like I had everything. I had my beautiful wife. I had my son. My son was conceived in 2019, I believe it was, and right before the pandemic even hit.
So that was a luck of the draw right there, man.
My wife got pregnant October, I think of 19.
And that started happening in what, February or something?
Yeah, and then the pandemic, remember, hit like towards February and March.
Yep.
Like we were actually at family visit when we started hearing the whole like, oh, she was already kind of pregnant a few months, and that's when Kobe had passed away. So everything was kind of like hitting, you know, like the whole thing, like, you know, the death of Kobe, and then I was like, bro, like the world's falling apart.
Yeah, because you said you were a Kobe fan,
Yeah.
so that shit probably was like, yo,
Yeah.
what the fuck, Kobe Bryant?
You know, it's crazy that the night before, I think LeBron had broke a record, and I was telling my wife, like, look, man, this is why it's so powerful, because LeBron's this, and then Kobe was this, and Kobe was like a father to me. Like, well, I was like, bro, you don't even know the dude. Like, nah, it's just like the culture in LA. Like, you know, you're sitting down watching the Lakers. That's what you do. That was it. You know? And so it was major. Like, when that happened, I was just like, bro, like, the next day I was in the shower. My wife was like, hey, they said that Kobe died. I was like, girl, get the hell out of here, man. What are you talking about, man? Don't be speaking like that. You know, that's blasphemy right there.
Yeah.
But it was the reality of what had happened.
Wild.
And at that time, the pandemic hit, and it didn't give us the opportunity to, like, you know, be together through her pregnancy of my son, right? Because I didn't get to see my son till like a year later, you know? And it really impacted me a lot, because people don't talk about, like COVID impacted our communities on a major way. Like,
it really did.
In a major way, whether we lost people, whether the world, America, just kind of was at a standstill, you know? Imagine for us in prison, you're just looking at TV, and then you're looking, oh man, this dude's sick over there in cell 101. Like, oh fuck, hey, they're taking him to a different block. Like, oh fuck, hey, they're putting us on lockdown. Hey, fuck, they're coming with suits now. They're putting suits and masks on us.
Scary.
You know?
Hey, did you think it was like a zombie apocalypse? That's the way I always pictured it for people.
You know
that were
what?
busted.
Like, no, but I for sure thought, like, yeah, this is it, bro. Like,
some crazy shit.
above us go die out some coronavirus, you know?
Yeah.
Because you would hear people dying. I'm like, if people are dying out there in society, what makes you think we're not gonna die in here?
When you're all together.
Yeah, like, and I had already been through traumatic experiences, like in 2010 when the whole tsunami had hit. When the tsunami was supposedly hitting in somewhere in Asia or whatnot. And it was in 2010, and I think they had locked up Pelican Bay.
Earthquake.
Well,
it was up north.
Yeah, they had put the locks on us in Pelican Bay, and then they left. Like, the tower came down and left, and I'm like, if the water comes, his is like, we're really gonna.
He left.
Hey, you know,
like,
that proves
really,
that kind of
really
proves my theory on that. So the thing with the locks is, so supposedly in prison, there's this like story where they say that if there was any type of like apocalyptic disaster, the guards have the decision to either put locks on the thing and make sure they just keep you there, or to let everybody go. So basically, everybody knows that you're gonna die there if something were to happen, because there's no obligation. There's like supposedly in writing or something where they have the discretion
like
to
a
just
law or type shit supposedly. I never.
So they make a universal decision to be like, yo,
let's help these dudes get them out, or
not.
fuck them. I'm gonna go help my family. I'll leave them locked up.
So
here.
imagine you have to wrap your mind around it.
Yeah.
Like, at one point, so experiencing that and then experiencing the COVID was like here we go again.
So much shit going down.
Yeah, like so much shit, you know.
Yeah.
And it was something that was kind of like, it was also a traumatic experience, because not only did I not see my son be born, it took away from us as parents.
I'm still trying to figure out how the fuck that happened. So like you guys are in prison, and like, how are you guys meeting? Like, how does that even, like, where do you get this time to?
No, well, they have family visits, so you go to a room, which you're able to be there about three to 4 days, like depending on what the prison and the rules they have. And we go in there like on a Friday and come back on a Sunday, or go in there on a Saturday and come back on a Monday.
Oh, so you stay over?
Yeah, so you stay, you get to cook and all that. You get to
Oh, so you really do get to spend time with with whoever you're with.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
And then those guys, I used to see them come back with like Jordan sandals and good toothpaste, you know.
Well, yeah, you're not supposed to be bringing that back. But you come back and you're like the only one that got Jordans
fly,
on. Like,
just fly.
I just
you're
got
like,
Jordans on. I was like, bro, you know,
it is what
Mambas
it
up. Got the Mambas.
But yeah, that's how that took place. And she was able to bring my son after we were cleared through the pandemic, and
What was that first day? Like,
it was just like, it was beautiful. It was beautiful, bro, because like I feel like my son, he's like a replica of me. Like, and everybody says that he looks exactly like you, right? Like, if there was any chance to take this little dude to Maury, like, yeah, it would be like a kick in the face. But
Like, come on, y'all.
come on, man.
Stop
The
it.
kid looks like you. Like, he's exactly his behavior, his emotions, everything. And I look at him and I think about my childhood.
yeah.
And I think about how I was raised. Like, and I think about the lack of father that I didn't have. And it being that I got to spend time with my son, my wife at family visits. And then, like, now, like, you know, my wife's been visiting me because they still live up north. And just to be around my son, like, we went to sleep at 1 a.m. last night watching Mickey's Clubhouse.
That's
on
awesome.
my phone.
Yeah.
And I had to cut it short. I'm like, hey, bro, it's like 1 o'clock in the morning. I got to do a podcast tomorrow. But he doesn't understand, and he's a baby. He's a kid.
That's part of the process, man. It's a beautiful thing, and you know, take it in, because they only last that age for whatever, you know, their childhood. So shit. Let's take us to how did your 61 or 60? What was it? 60? The sentence. The 30, was it 30? Or what was this original
36,
sentence?
36.
36. So how did the 36 get dropped down to eventually end up coming home off of 15?
So, of course, I qualify for the laws.
Okay.
So they
You had
say,
that.
you know, you're able to go to a board hearing after your 15 year, your 20 year, your 25 years incarcerated, right? In my situation, it's a determinate sentence, so it goes at your 15-year mark. So in last year around June, the 1st of June, I mean, I had done a preparation of 5-6 years, whether it's certifications, diplomas, self-help, you know, putting events together, being involved in my community and here and out there, doing fundraisers, participating and donating things to the homeless while being in prison, you know, whatever it was that's asked. And not only like the physical work, but also like the mental, right? Of trying to understand why is it that you got to a point that you wanted to commit a crime against 2 officers? Like, how did you get to that point? Like, because no one wakes up and just does that.
Right.
Like,
Absolutely
you evolve
right.
to that over time. And in June 1st, I believe, I went into a board hearing. I went in, I was the second individual that went in. At that point, though, like, I was at peace. Like, I was comfortable with who I was, what I needed to convey to the commissioner. You know, like, there have been a lot of changes in my life also as well, like with my spiritual side. You know, I had accepted God, and for me, it just kind of relieved a lot of stress. Like, it was a burden that I no longer carried, right? I don't worry about certain things, and, you know, I don't put too much focus on the future and past, because I'm like, well, I'm trying to live now, and everything that I've done eventually is going to give me some type of positive result, right? So I went in, I was found suitable. The commissioner, you know, it just happened so fast. Like, right? You know, we think that you're suitable. You know, you've learned pretty much everything that you had to. You've applied it. We commend you. The whole thing, right?
Well, was a warden by chance involved in any of that?
No.
They're
So
not.
you have just, and it was actually through Zoom. You have
damn,
yeah.
okay. That's
you
hard
have,
to kinda-
You have a commissioner and a deputy commissioner, and yeah, it happened so fast. I was like, fuck, like, I'm finally going home. Like, you know, like, this is over. And you have to wait, sometimes it's like 120 to 150 days for like your final response. Right? And like, it was crazy because I waited to my 120th day, and the individual that went to board that morning with me, he had heard about his response. Well, I heard actually about mine. And they were like, oh, you're not going home. And I'm like, well, why not? Like, oh, the governor didn't want to sign.
Bro, you know what's crazy about this? I forget it was against cops, man.
Yeah.
So the whole world is
Right.
against you. They don't care how much time you did.
And then I sat there and I watched my friend like get his paper, like, oh, you're going home like in a week. And I'm like, And I just like, it's kind of weird because even though I'm human and I still feel those emotions, like, bro, like, fuck, like, I've done everything. I've gone to the extent of bending ass backwards for this shit. Like, and I've genuinely done the work, you know, and I don't feel like I deserve anything. I don't feel like I'm entitled to anything. But it's just like, what do I have to do now? Because, like, in that situation, you're just like, how do I pivot? Like, what do I do? Because alone, you're trying to help your wife and your family understand, like, hey, man, I just got denied. What does this mean? Like, because all my family was happy. Everybody was like, man, he's coming home. But and then you hear you receive a letter and the governor saying, I'm not going to grant him his parole, right? Because he has the final say-so. But he's going to go through I believe it's pronounced an embankment. And it's basically you have to go through another process of like 12 commissioners, and it's open to the public, and you could have people speak on your behalf or you can have people speak against you. And it was just like, you know, quickly, like I had to like learn what the fuck that was. And I told my wife, hey, we got to find out what it is, where we got to call people. I need to rally up the troops. Like, we need to get going on this. And like, bro, like, I can honestly say, like, and I want to do it live with this because in 2015, 16, I met an individual. His name was David Garnica. He actually was in Ironwood, part of the college program and everything.
Yeah.
And he paroled. He had 2 life sentences, right? He was one of the first guys that came into the ARC, part of the Hope and Redemption team, right? And one of his first groups was actually at Corcoran, on that yard that I was in, and he was there to show us basically, hey man, hope and redemption is possible. Like, you can do the work and get out of prison. And I remember I had approached this individual like, man, well, how did you go to prison? And his simple words at the time were like you got to do the work. And I was just like, well, okay, well, that's what I'm doing.
A little vague. What does
that mean? A little bit vague, right?
Yeah.
And I remember that the guys around me, they're like, that's the only response this motherfucker had to give us? Like, put in the work? Like, we're already putting in the work. We do like 5 groups a day. Like, and I was just like expecting some type of like special formula, like, right? And the reality was that you had to put in the work. Like, that's what it is. You have to stay focused and dedicated. Like, this is a lifestyle. Like, this is not something you just do like, well, I'm going to do groups and then I'm going to go home. Like, no. Like, what if you don't go home? Like, what is your, like, destination? Like, what is your purpose? Do you wake up and try to be a better individual? Like, you can't defeat the process. You can't pass through the process. You can't go around it. There's a process to this shit, and you have to put in the work. And putting in the work means a lot of things. It means making a sacrifice, right? It means being able to roll with the punches, being able to change your thinking, being able to make those sacrifices of not using a cell phone while you're in prison, you know, of standing your ass in that payphone and waiting and having a dude tell you, hey, bro, I'm next, you know, or the yard goes down and you don't have an opportunity to call your wife or your family. Like, it's filled with different things, right? It's different components. And, you know, like, I put in the work and I feel like even when the embankment happened, like, I had individuals like him speak. I had, you know, individuals like, you know, people from Initiate Justice, people from ARC, individuals that work at Homeboys Industries.
Did you try to get Fogo, or what was did you try to get them?
Yeah, he wrote a letter. He actually had wrote a letter.
Okay.
And I had a strong support network, you know. In the event, like, I literally got to be on the phone, like on the payphone, calling my wife all morning, just listening to these embankments, right? Because throughout the day, they have at least like 10, like 15. So you have people calling, like the opposing party and the people that support.
You were listening to that for all these other people fighting their same thing?
Because I was calling my wife and you can hear it on the computer, right? And I'm just like, I was literally telling dudes like where I was at, like luckily the program was kind of like just there was a lot going on. So I was able to be on the phone, call back to back. And then I'm listening like, hey, am I up yet? No, not yet. And then finally, okay, we're bringing up the case of Ernesto Sanchez, this, and that. And you're like, okay, who can speak on his behalf? And then you just have all these individuals speaking. Like, it's kind of crazy because now this is the first time I actually talk about it, but you don't see the impact of what you leave or what you make in other people's lives. Like, I have one of my friends, he had got out and I was helping him and mentoring him, and he had got out from the same yard and he spoke in my embankment, right? And then you had Eugene Walker, he was at Homeboys and he spoke, right? David Garnica, he spoke. Like, you have Juan Osorio, you had all these individuals speaking, you know, and it was just like, man, like, this is what I mean to them, or this is how they see me, because you really don't know how others perceive you until you're actually given an opportunity to speak on your behalf. And Mr. Scott, you know, like,
Scott Budnick spoke at your thing too?
This is no. I have a close friend. I have a close friend, and his name's Scott Braden. You know, and he's kind of like at a different scale. He builds homes and schools and shelters in foreign places like the Congo, you know, Cambodia.
So straight up humanitarian.
Yeah, straight up humanitarian. Yeah. And when I was mentoring his kids at Corcoran, we became close friends. Yeah. So we stayed contact, and this dude's like, he has like the biggest spirit you can ever come across. Like, he's passionate about everything he does. Yeah. And I asked him, like, there's one thing that I learned, network is like, it's prime, right? You know,
bro, and it doesn't stop. Even out here, even throughout your journey, every card, every hand you shake, remember it. You're gonna need it.
Exactly. And he spoke. He spoke on my behalf. He spoke. My family, my brothers did. My little brothers did. You know, my wife spoke. You know, close family and friends. So it was major, man. It was major. It was something that really helped me out. There was nobody speaking against me.
The cops could have, huh?
No, yeah,
if they wanted to.
They could have if they wanted to. And yeah, I was like, it took, I think, like 2 days for them to put it on the site to see if I was actually signed off.
That's low-key a cold way to find out.
Yeah.
Well, on the website?
You're just refreshing a website for 2 days straight, 24 hours.
I mean, that's how when you're getting accepted for college. That's how you feel.
Yeah, you're right.
It was so intense that, like, the officers where I was housed at, the regular officers, they would refresh their computer, and then, like, when they refreshed the computer one morning, like, I was like, they called me, they popped my door, Sanchez, report to the podium, and I'm just like, and the officer's like, come in the office real quick, you know, and he turned the screen, and he's like, you're going home.
Damn.
Well,
pack your shit up, you know, like, pack your shit up. They should be calling you any day now.
Do you still have that 60 or 90 day period from? Oh no, because you
lived that out already. Yeah,
right.
This is the first one that I hear that you know. So we've talked about this a few times. We've never had anyone that got denied by the governor. This is the first time. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty insane to know that there's a whole nother process behind it.
It was intense too.
You said you were hearing other people's stuff, right? Like you were able to hear. Yeah. Were they like? Did they have nobody sometimes, or
you had like. You know, I was listening to, that's why it was kind of like tense, because I was literally shaking because you had people speaking against them. And I remember it was like a high classified murder. I think it was an individual had murdered his wife or whatnot. And you can hear her family speak against him, right? Shit. And you're like, you know, telling him why he doesn't deserve to be out in society.
Not knowing whether someone's gonna go against.
Like, I'm pretty sure someone's gonna show up, and then, you know, they don't want to have a dirtbag like me out in society, right? Because what they have is, you know, and, you know, like, even like the law enforcement, they did send a letter, you know, and like, I remember I got to read it, and it was basically they were not in agreement of me being released.
Oh, so you did get something against you.
And, like, I was just like, well, bro, like, you know, like...
You kind of expected that, though?
Yeah, I did.
Right, it's coming from the...
I did expect it, and it's expected, right? And those are things you have to take into account, like once you're released, you know, because it's a different type of type of crime. It's a different type of
Correct.
Situation that you're dealing with. But for me, it's like I already made my mind up, like what I need to do with being out here. You know, I've achieved. I believe I've achieved what I needed to in the time frame that I've been given. Right, this month on the 26th, I'll be 6 months out. I have 2 jobs, you know, and it hasn't been easy. I purchased my first car with the help of my wife. You know, like I've gone out and I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, networking and attending the things that I want to do and trying to leave all that. And somebody asked me the other day, it's like, why are you doing everything you're doing, right? And I said, well, you know what? Like, I like to think that I'm doing it for myself, you know, so, but at the end of the day, like, I'm not. Like, all this is for my son because it's like a generational thing. Like, I don't feel that my father left me anything, right? And I don't have no bitterness or no resentment towards it. Like, it is what it is. Some people are not fit to be fathers, you know?
You know, and as you get older and your kid gets older, you're going to realize, start seeing things that you never seen. You're going to realize, holy shit, it's not as easy, or maybe when you start going through your things, you're going to have these little like moments where you're like, fuck, maybe that's why that happened, you know? And it sucks that this parenting shit, nobody teaches it to you. You got to learn as you go for the first one, you know, again, you can read a book all you want, right? But I don't think it translates. I'm going through that now. I got a teenager, you know?
Yeah.
You know, so you're like, fuck, this is not the way I planned it, but that's the way life goes.
Yeah, and like you said, it doesn't come with instructions, and we're both
There you
learning.
go.
You know, me and my wife have a different way. We like to think that we come together when it's about him. I'm a little bit more stern. You know, somebody was trying to tell me the other day, you know, it's different. You know, like the power of a man is different from a woman. And I'm like, well, how so? He said, yeah, because once he gets a little bit older, he's gonna be like, Mom, you can't hit me no more, you know, because I'm strong, you know? He said, but he gonna second guess about that father, you know? And I'm gonna tell the little motherfucker, I've been through some shit, man. You know, you don't scare me one bit, but it's not about him being scared of you
There
or
you
having
go.
fear.
I'm glad
Like,
you pointed that out.
it's I want him to understand that I love him, right? And that's why I do what I do. Like, that's probably like one of the 2 main reasons why I even come here today, because of course to set out the message of hope and redemption. Like, you know, you can transform your life, that, you know, you could go into a prison setting and you could take advantage of what it has to offer, because people are invested just as much as people are invested into having these prisons. Like, there's also people that are invested into want to go in there and getting paid close to nothing to want to get you out of prison. But the biggest thing too is for me is my son, because my son's gonna see this. You know, my son's going to be able to see it, and he's going to be like, you know what, like, that was my father, and he was able to make a change in his life. And I know that it's possible. I know that I can make an impact also as well, because God forbid I lose my life tomorrow. This is something that's recorded, right? This is something that he can watch over and over again and say, you know what, like, this is something that I can remember him by, right? Through all the bullshit that he had to go through all the shit that he exposed himself to, whether it was willingly or unwillingly. At the end of the day, he came out, he was progressing, he was making something. And whether you can say, you know, shit catches up to you, you know, or just by luck at the wrong time, wrong place or whatnot, or just natural things that happen in life also as well.
Yeah, no, I think you're in a good spot, man. 6 months out, you got the car already. You have 2 jobs. One of them is in reentry. You're doing what we do. And like you said, you get to help out our folks across color lines. None of that. If you've been through that system, you know what I went through. And so I have a desire. I really do, an innate right to help somebody. And again, everything else is just timing, bro. You know, everything is timing. Everything, the way you carry yourself is going to change as you grow. You know, you're going to touch hands with different individuals. They're going to rub off on you, and you start to incorporate things, you know, into your your post plan, you know, whatever that vision is. That's what I always did. I always used to get dude stories. I had one dude that went to Alaska to do the fishing stuff. You know, they do felons there.
Yeah.
I took that. I took other dudes that decided to go to college, and I'm like, I'm gonna take bits and pieces of their transition, and I'm gonna put it into mine for what works for me. And I think you're doing that. You're doing that. There's no way around it because you're making it. You know.
Yeah.
I think what's really beautiful is seeing like that you're gonna provide this kind of impact to your son, and I hope to God, and I know it could happen. He'll provide that impact going forward to everybody else too.
Yeah.
And you're creating this domino effect that will help the upcoming youth, the upcoming kids through your son,
And
through your experiences.
I think I mentioned it. You know, I have on my Instagram, and like the biggest act of service you could give anybody is just to inspire. Mm-hmm. Like we want to sit here, and we want to change our communities. We want to be, you know, contributing members and whatnot, and it's cool. We can all do that, man. There's many people that are doing a great job in it, you know. But like, you really have to try to relate to someone at a personal level, right? In order for them to even grasp what is it that you're trying to convey. Like for me, it's just like, I want to sit here and I'm like, wow, I want to help everybody. Like, but the reality is that I might not be able to, right? I for sure want to help my family. I want to help the people that are nearest and closest to me, my wife, my son. But for me too, it's like, I just want to inspire. I want to inspire, I want to inspire, I want to inspire. And if someone grabs it, they grab it and they run with it. If they don't, I mean, I really don't have that choice or that decision for somebody else to take that in or whatnot. I just know that every day as I wake up, as I come out, and as I do my thing on this earth, like I have to make an impact. You know, I have to inspire, whether it's just to talk different, walk different, educate themselves different. Like you see me and most individuals, like at my job at the work source, like it almost seems like I'm like a unicorn, you know, because none of them been incarcerated. So they all look at me, they're like, oh my God, how are you out? Like, I was like, well, bro, like I did the work, you know, and they treat me different. So it's just, if I know they can see me that way, then it's something also too that others can, you know.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I think so right now the steps you're taking now too is you're getting your stuff removed, right? You're getting you're working on treatment. How long is that gonna take you? Because I know you've been working on the one.
At the moment, I am getting at Homeboys free at cost, right?
Right.
I'm already on my fourth session. The individual told me, the doctor, he told me that it would take up to like 25 sessions, right? And like it hurts, bro. Like it hurts. When I go in, I just go full throttle. Like I tell them, don't stop. We're not here to be friends. Let's do this. You know, my sessions are usually like no longer than 15 to 20 minutes because he just goes in, boom, boom, I'm done. Let's go.
What do you do? You just crunch your teeth hard? And just,
you had to see them on my Instagram.
Yeah.
You know, like
what's do you want to shout out your Instagram? What's
my Instagram is very simple.
If you want.
Yeah, it's very simple. Mr. Sands, 1989.
Okay.
Which is kind of like Mr. Sanchez, you know, and then my year. Yeah, and I post up a lot of those things. You know, I post up my family a lot, my son, my wife, the things that I've achieved, the things that bring, you know, that peace and love into my life. And I just try to focus on that. I do highlight my tattoo things because it's painful. Right. It's painful. Like, it's painful.
I can imagine.
I'm hungry for it. You know, I'm hungry for it. I'm hungry to, you know, be something different. You know, I don't want to be looked at as just like, oh, this dude was a gang member and he did time in prison and he's from that lifestyle. Like, nah, man, like I have more of, I know I mentioned it to you guys when we spoke last time, like I have a whole lot more to offer than just to be my past. Like, you know, yeah, people see us, we have the living experience. We grew up in the hood, in the ghetto and whatnot. Like, oh, these dudes made it, they're doing good, and they're family men, and they're creating, and they're innovating and whatnot. Like, yeah, but I'm also a lot more than just my past. I'm also a lot more than just, you know, being an ex-gang member and growing through the lifestyle and made it out. Like, I can do other things too also as well.
That part.
You know?
And I'm excited to see what else is to come, man. Because I know you're only 6 months out. You're still starting. I can't wait to follow up. Do a little follow up with my boy and see where he's at
or something, you know.
I guess because my bad, because I guess because we're gonna start wrapping things up. What are your like final long term? What's like your long term and short term goals right now as you now are still going through the transition?
You know, my short term goals would definitely just find some type of stability financially.
Gotcha.
I mean, if you ain't got money, can't even do anything, right? And I'm trying to find a home. I'm trying to find a place, a home as a physically like an apartment or something that me and my wife can have or something on my own. But I'm also trying to find a home within an organization. You know, there's a few organizations that I've reached out to. Unfortunately, whether I'm fit for the role or whatnot, or my time out of prison, it's a factor. Yeah. Like, I'm just kind of pushing. You know, so it's my short term is trying to create as much as I can for myself, right? To show my value. And then hopefully for the long term, I'm well established in an organization, whether as a director or also as someone that has created his own nonprofit to help our community.
Oh, yeah. And there's anybody listening, and you guys can make it happen, please reach out. You have his Instagram. Please reach out and see how we can help or how you could help. However.
Yeah. I think as long as you keep networking, it'll happen. Say yes to everything. Right. I used to do speaking engagements in college. College is another good resource just to grow, meet people. You're going to meet so many people, just everything. You're going to get invited to speaking events. You're going to job fairs, this and that. You just have to do everything, you know. Different organizations to hold random things on the weekends. You just show up, you know, and then people will be like, oh, that's homeboy from wherever, you know. From the organization, that's how you get known. Like people now, they'll be like, "Oh, that's Damion. He's at PB Jobs. He's at whatever." I used to work for another organization, Friends Outside, part of ARC, all that. So it'll start catching up, and then you'll realize it's the same faces, you know. And that's how you network and you grow your relationships with these folks. And they may periodically, I get hit up every now and then. Hey, we got this going on, you know. You're like, all right, cool, let's do it, you know.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
It'll happen. Shit. Well, with that being said, Ernesto, thank you for blessing us with your story, man. We loved it.
Thank you, guys.
And I'm glad that you're doing the do. You're putting in the work, man. You know?
Make sure y'all like, subscribe, comment, all that, man. Turn on your notifications. Give it
Spotify,
the love,
iTunes, all that stuff. We doing it. We're trying to catch up here, y'all. We got you. Just download it. We got you. All right. With that being said, Reentry Network Podcast. Let's get it, baby.
Wow.
Thank you.